This fat as a pig young man is Sangwoo. He complains about everything in the world. Why eat and sleep when you can play games, date, travel? He wished he had two bodies to do it for him, and it came true. You live in a world of hunters, lots of hunters with lots of special abilities. If you want to have power, you must join a state-run awakening program that helps people awaken their power. It is necessary to step through the gate to promote the development process. Jung Sangwoo also lined up to go through the gate. After going through, he possessed the ability to clone himself. Currently at level 1, he can create a clone that looks exactly like the user by using energy. The maximum number of clones depends on the user's level. The original is connected to the clone. The current number of clones that can be summoned at the same time is 1. Cooldown time is 24 hours. Sangwoo followed the theory, closed his eyes and imagined for a while, and then successfully created another clone that looked exactly like himself. Sangwoo looked at the naked fat guy in front of him. He was confused and asked if he was a clone. Could he touch him? The clone didn't react. It obeyed its master. Sangwoo suddenly felt shy and a little confused. Then he slapped himself to wake up and examined his clone. He exclaimed, "This is a flesh and blood body, not an illusion." Sangwoo looked at the clone's sausage again and told it to put on its clothes first. After getting dressed, the two stood facing each other. He told the clone to sit down, and it immediately sat down. Sangwoo found it interesting. It could hear without saying a word. He thought it stood up again. The clone followed suit. Sangwoo asked it to repeat. The clone stood up and sat down a few times before panting like a buffalo. It seemed this clone's physical strength was exactly like his. After a while of cloning standing up and sitting down, a notification suddenly appeared. Sangwoo's strength increased by 0.001. At the park, Sangwoo's clone was running like hell. Every day, it ran back and forth around the park dozens of times. The clone sat on a bench, panting. A kind old lady came over to give him water, but his clone didn't care. He ignored her and continued running. The old lady sighed. "This guy is a pervert." Sangwoo stood on the scale. His current weight was 78.4. He had been feeling hungry lately and eating twice as much as before, but this month he was still able to lose 20 kilograms. You do nothing but your body keeps getting thinner every day. And it seems like you're getting a little taller. The system's parameter panel appeared again. His stamina and reflexes increased a little. Sangwoo sat back down on the chair. He discovered something while cloning. First, he was not affected by the pain and exhaustion that the clones suffered. Second, the clones will only disappear if they are injured or use up too much energy. Third, whenever his body changes, the clone will copy his appearance exactly immediately. Fourth, even though he was far away from the clone, he could still give orders just by thinking silently in his head. And finally, clones cannot use clones. Sangwoo tried searching the Hunter Wiki for data. A first-level data is limited to an unawakened adult. There are common data and special data. But most awakened people only have a portion of the common data selected and unlocked. Resilience, resistance, strength, intelligence are some special data, and there is no way to know the method to open these special data, except for a few exceptions. With just regular training, it is difficult to increase even 0.001 value per day. Sangwoo looked at his own value. His total value increase was already 0.39. Because the clones train non-stop and respond to every command given to them. They always work until they reach their limit, and that's why your data increases rapidly. Sangwoo wondered if his points would go up if he trained with the clones, but there was no way he would participate in this kind of grueling training. Suddenly Sangwoo saw the gym's advertisement and he got a great idea. Sangwoo looked at the total subscription fee and realized his account didn't have enough. Sangwoo sighed. He spent more on food these days. You should find a part-time job or something. Your current job hasn't been doing very well lately. Sangwoo went back to the computer to search. He planned to work as a construction worker, to stay healthy and earn money. He went through a series of tasks. The first few times he had to do it himself. The clone was not capable of doing things he had never experienced before. He stopped at the delivery job recruitment information. He picked up the phone and called the recruiter. The phone rang for a while and then someone picked up. He asked for information about the job posting. They said he didn't need an interview, he just needed to come and work. They asked him when he could start working. Sangwoo said tomorrow. The person on the other end of the line let out an "ah" and asked if he couldn't go today. Sangwoo was surprised after hearing that. He refused and went to the other side to make an appointment to come to work at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. The next day, Sangwoo went to the shipping company. Just to be safe, he brought another clone with him. But he made it wear a mask and a hood to cover its face. Sangwoo told it to answer well. When working, its name was Jongdu. While he was wondering where to go, someone suddenly called him. Sangwoo turned around and realized it was an acquaintance, Uncle Doc Chill. He didn't recognize him at all because he had lost so much weight. He pointed him to a building and told him to go in. That was the office. Sangwoo was full of energy and prepared to go to work. He finished early and went home. After a while, he was panting like a buffalo, exhausted, his hands and feet shaking. He had been too delusional about this job. It would probably take until tomorrow to finish. Sangwoo cried without tears. He should have just stayed home. Only clones would do the job. After receiving the order to take a 1-hour break, Sangwoo was about to die. At that moment, Uncle Doc Chill gave him 2 cans of water, advising him to drink enough water to compensate for the sweat, and he also bought food. Sangwoo gratefully accepted it. Uncle Doc Chill sat down next to him and cloned it. He looked at the clone and asked what its name was, working hard like a buffalo but being so secretive. The clone said the name Sangwoo had told him before. The uncle turned to ask Sangwoo if he was okay. It seemed like this was his first time doing something like this. Sangwoo said he was also quite tired. The uncle burst out laughing and praised the two boys for their perseverance. Most of them would have quit their jobs by now. Sangwoo cried silently, crushing the can of water in his hand. If he wasn't broke, he wouldn't need to do this job. The uncle asked him which university he went to, and he replied that he went to Jongho-guk University. The uncle praised him, saying that he must have studied very hard to get into that school. He wished his daughter could get into that school too. Sangwoo comforted his uncle not to worry too much. He wasn't very good at studying, but he still got into the school. The uncle was curious how he got into the school. He said he had some qualifications and was admitted directly. The uncle burst out laughing. He thought for a moment and then asked if he wanted to find another job. He asked what job. The uncle told him to tutor his daughter instead of torturing himself here. Sangwoo hesitated a bit. He thought about his account balance. He asked his uncle how much was his salary. The uncle said 50,000 won per session, 2 hours per session, 1 to 2 sessions per week. Sangwoo calculated, 50,000 won for 2 hours compared to the time spent, the salary is not bad. Sangwoo accepted. The uncle dusted off his clothes and stood up, saying he would go back and discuss it with his daughter and then contact him. Sangwoo also stood up and stretched. It was truly smooth sailing. The system again displays a notification that the indexes have increased by 0.001 again. He was satisfied. Having work and increasing stats at the same time, it was really too good. Just then another uncle pushed out 2 boxes and told the boys to move them. Sangwoo turned off the electronic board. He rummaged through the bag of food, ate first and then continued. Just as you were talking, the food bag was clean and shiny. Seeing Sang eating with relish without any emotion, Sangwoo stood still and smiled awkwardly. Fuck, you ate it all, you bastard. The next morning, Sangwoo was aching all over. He cursed. From now on he would have to use clone number 1 as a part-time job. Looking at my index, it increased a little bit, proving that number 1 is working very hard. He telepathically ordered number 1 to go home. He wanted to make it disappear by summoning it back, but that would mean losing the suit. After Sangwoo finished breakfast, number 1 also returned. He told him to take a shower and change his clothes, then he ordered him to hold out his hand. Sangwoo trembled as he held the needle and pricked his finger. Blood was oozing from his finger but number 1 still had no reaction. Sangwoo hurriedly took a tissue to wipe the blood away, asking if it hurt. Number 1 remained indifferent and expressionless. Sangwoo read the news on the Hunter wiki page. To unlock the regeneration skill can follow the following ways. First, self-injury. Second, let it heal itself until it no longer needs any outside help. Third, repeat the above 2 steps until the skill is unlocked. Sangwoo was scared. He didn't dare to make any bigger wounds. Thinking about it was disgusting, so he just kept making small wounds. Sangwoo told number 1 to eat ramen whenever he's hungry or finished working. He gave him a phone and told him to bring it with him to work. And remember to answer the phone. Sangwoo said and picked up his bag, took the flyer and went out. He looked for the address of the gym from the other day. While walking, he met an acquaintance. A tall, dark, sweaty young man put his arm around his shoulder and asked him how he was doing. Sangwoo was also a little startled. He frowned and shook his hand away. This guy is Kim Jong-do. He laughed and said, "You've been so skinny lately. You must have lost a lot of weight." Sangwoo held up a flyer saying he exercises every day. He is now going to the gym to exercise. Jong-do also touched his belly fat. He also needed to exercise. He asked what gym Sangwoo went to. Sangwoo said the gym was called Flexible Body. Jong-do laughed heartily. He said it had good reviews. The PT there is super nice. He immediately dragged Sangwoo to the gym. The two of them went inside together. The guide saw them and quickly greeted them. He introduced that the gym is currently having a promotion. If you sign up for 3 months, it will only cost 160,000 won. Sangwoo didn't think much about it and signed up for a 3-month subscription. The clone would practice for him anyway. Sangwoo told him to show him the machines that fit his body type. After paying, the two went for a walk. Sangwoo tried his best to lift the weights. He could only lift a few and was out of breath when he sat up. The instructor complimented his body as quite nice. Was about to introduce the machine when I heard a loud noise on the other side. Turning around, I saw Jong-do lifting easily, strong as a buffalo. After lifting, he stood and made a few poses to show off. The instructor exclaimed wow. He asked if he had ever worked out before. Jong-do laughed and said it was his first time. Its physical strength increased after awakening. The instructor asked again what its physical strength was. It happily replied 2.1. Sangwoo understood what was being said. So the hunter skill that Jong-do was talking about last time was strength. But if just leveling up a normal skill is already this strong, then how strong are higher level hunters? There must be a reason why people only talk about hunters, right? Sangwoo felt his phone vibrate. He took it out and answered. The caller was Doc Chill. The uncle called him about the tutoring. He asked if he had time now. Let's meet and talk. Sangwoo said yes. Then they agreed on a meeting place and hung up. Sangwoo walked to Deokchil's apartment. He muttered, that bastard Jong-do didn't sign up no matter how much he showed off. There weren't many pretty PTS around so he didn't bother signing up. But it was good because now he didn't have to worry about sending clones to the gym. Sangwoo stood in front of Deokchil's room door. It was a bit noisy inside. He leaned in to listen. Inside, the father and daughter were arguing about tutoring. The daughter didn't seem to want a tutor very much. Suddenly the door flew open. Sangwoo slammed his face into the door. He fell to the ground. Deokchil stepped out to go to work but saw Sangwoo standing outside the door. The daughter inside was also stunned. After a while of confusion, Deokchil invited him in and sat down. His wife brought out an apple to offer him. He has lost so much weight recently that she hardly recognizes him. Sangwoo turned to his daughter. She had regained her fierce demeanor. She shyly introduced herself. The Deokchil couple whispered to each other. Smiling, the little girl was shy. Haeyeon was still embarrassed. She didn't know what else to say. She just wanted to find a hole and hide in it. Sangwoo must have heard everything just now. Sangwoo acted like nothing happened. He talked about her studies. He asked her to show him her grades. Haeyeon shyly showed it to him. Sangwoo also froze after watching. Stunned on the spot, he couldn't smile anymore. The Deokchil couple looked at each other and smiled. Deokchil grabbed his shirt and rushed out, saying he had to go to work. Sangwoo also noticed her shyness. He told her not to worry. He didn't get very high marks in his exams. He had a lot of tips for doing this test. Haeyeon arrived much more alert. She was excited. Sangwoo started teaching. After teaching, he went home. He still had to try hard. But luckily, that girl Haeyeon was also smart. Sangwoo sat back down on the chair. He told himself that number 1 must have gone to work already. He gave it a spare phone. But if the number of clones increased, it would be a hassle to prepare more phones. Sangwoo went to the Skill Hunter website again. He saw an ad for a telepathy skill for sale. Can link senses with pets and summon creatures. Targets can share vision with each other. Price 100 million. Sangwoo scrolled through another message. Telepathy skill scroll, 400 million. Sangwoo muttered, if he had that much money, he would buy a house. Damn this skill. It would take him a lifetime to have enough money to buy this skill. Can hunters really afford this stuff? So rich. This price is also low. Sangwoo opened his phone to check his account balance again. 233,000 won. He threw the phone on the bed. Forget it. He wondered whether he should become a hunter. Sangwoo skimmed through the news and saw the luxurious lives of A-rank hunters. He sat up straight, thinking back, that skill was a great one. With it, he would be able to easily order the clones to do odd jobs. Sangwoo put on his jacket. Be a hunter. Sangwoo went straight to the hunter center. He stretched his arms. He wondered if he had just unlocked his vitality. Even though he had only slept for a few hours, he felt refreshed. Sangwoo went inside. He looked around curiously. It seemed that not many people came to check. The receptionist announced that there were 20 minutes left to register for the hunter ability test on basement 1. Sangwoo followed the directions downstairs. He opened the door to the hunter license testing room. There was also a bunch of people waiting. Sangwoo didn't dare say anything more. He sat down in an empty seat. After a while, 3 people entered. The short, burly man in the lead was Han Myungwon. He was a C-rank hunter and also the exam supervisor. He introduced a competency test consisting of a written test, a practical test, and an aptitude test. Anyone caught cheating would be disqualified from taking this test and would not be allowed to take the exam next year. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Then the test began. In a car somewhere, Seo Kong of JM Company is being urged to pay the deposit. He promises to pay it all by the end of this month. After hanging up, he looked at his watch. The hunter test should be over by now. He had to hurry up and get there to bait. Sangwoo finished the exam as if he had just woken up from a dream. He had now passed the exam. He was an F-rank hunter. You can't believe it. People say it's easy. You wonder how easy it is. It's just like taking a driving test. The questions in the written test are quite easy. Just remember a few things and you'll be fine. They give ample time to practice for the practice session and the target is pretty close too. The aptitude test is like civics at school. Ask one question and leave. This job involved using weapons and risking lives, yet the checks were so sloppy. Sangwoo was a little in disbelief. It was as if the government wanted them to do this. Sangwoo sighed. He saw a crowd of people in the distance. He wondered if they were part of the organization that recruited hunters. Suddenly someone behind him held out a business card to congratulate him on passing the hunter test. This person is Seo Kong from earlier. He introduced himself as Kong Junmo. He told him to contact him whenever he wants to buy items or hunt monsters. He will give you the lowest price. Sangwoo shyly thanked him. Suddenly a system notification appeared in front of him. His cloning skill increased to level 2. The maximum number of clones that can be created at once is currently 2. Without waiting for Seo Kong to finish his introduction, Sangwoo ran back in a panic. He left a message saying he would contact him later. Seo Kong trembled and cried silently. Tears and snot silently flowed inside. Remember to contact me again? Sangwoo chuckled. Cloning is awesome. He named the newly created clone number 2. Then he took out the business card he got today and prepared to go on his journey as a hunter. Seo Kong tiredly threw the remaining business cards on the chair next to him. He secretly hoped people would get back in touch. Kong Junmo looked out the glass window. He thought back to the conversation with his superiors at headquarters. His superior threw him a pile of papers, telling him to disperse the amount of money listed over there. Kong Junmo flipped through the papers to see the numbers inside. He found the amount a bit strange. The dwarf's blood price is at least 5 million. His boss said something that was both head and tail. He told him to get his head together. If they just followed the law and did everything right, they would be eating dirt. The boss put his coffee cup down on the table and patted Kong Junmo on the shoulder. I know you're very upright, but don't be so sensitive about business here. Kong Junmo trembled as he clenched the pile of papers, unable to say anything more. He felt a headache coming on. If he had known, he should have kept his mouth shut. Suddenly the phone rang. He took it out and answered it. It was Sangwoo on the other end of the line. He had something to ask. The two of them met at a coffee shop. When Junmo arrived, Sangwoo was already sitting there. The two exchanged words for a moment. Sangwoo wanted to hunt in a safe place that was within the rookie's range. Junmo asks about Sangwoo's skills. He replied, his skill is cloning. Junmo hesitated after hearing this. He had heard of this skill before. It seemed to be the ability to create an illusion of a clone, but the clone was useless. A rookie with such useless skills is useless when hunting. Junmo thought for a moment but remained polite. He pretended to praise his skills and then handed him a contract to read. The first hunting spot he suggested was the slime hunting ground. Slimes weren't aggressive or dangerous, but when they died, they would spit out poisonous liquid and fumes. You'd need to wear a mask and protective gear. Those weren't easy to put on, so the downside was that you wouldn't be able to hunt for long. Sangwoo took a picture of the contract and said it was no problem. The second option is to hunt unicorns. There is plenty of time to hunt there, but they are hard to catch, so you probably won't get much. There is a fence around the area, so it is safe to hunt. There were other low-level monsters like giant rats, but the two Kong Junmo had just brought up were the best options if Sangwoo wanted to be safe. Sangwoo kept flipping through the contract. Both parts were good, and he was quite satisfied with the item's price. He put the contract on the table and said he accepted it. Kong Junmo wrote it down in his notebook, asking which hunting ground he wanted to choose. Suddenly another hand took the seal and slammed it down. A Sangwoo appeared, saying that he liked both hunting grounds, so he wanted to try them both. Kong Junmo looked at the two identical people in front of him. He was stunned, remembering that he had also met a ninja with the ability to clone himself before. But those clones were just useless illusions that could be passed through at a touch, unable to cause any real damage. But now witnessing Sangwoo's cloning ability, he was extremely surprised. The clone could check the contract again. It could also drink coffee. This was the first time he saw a skill like this. Junmo still didn't believe it, so he asked Sangwoo if they were twins. He burst out laughing. It was understandable that he misunderstood. Sangwoo patted his clone's shoulder and said this was his clone. Your clone is the real deal. Actually, he had one more, but he sent it to the gym. Junmo was surprised. Clones also need to train their muscles? Sangwoo cheerfully explained that if his clone became stronger, he would also become stronger. Junmo felt much more hopeful. This was not simply a skill of an ordinary F-rank hunter. Sangwoo had extremely great potential. Sangwoo asked Junmo if there was a problem if the same person entered different places at the same time. Junmo replied, it might be difficult to enter at the same time because each time you enter a place will be recorded separately. Sangwoo rubbed his hands together with tears in his eyes. So that's not okay. Junmo said he would talk to the Hunter Association about it and make some adjustments. Instead, he needed to scan Sangwoo's collar and needed him to demonstrate his skills in detail himself, so he asked Sangwoo to come with him. Sangwoo agreed, but he wouldn't be able to use the skill again until tomorrow night, because he needed to cool it down. Junmo asked to meet him at the Hunter Center 2 days later. The two signed the contract and then started working together. 2 days later, Sangwoo went to the Hunter Center as scheduled. After waiting for a while, Junmo arrived. The two of them went inside. After lining up, it was their turn. He wanted to duplicate access to the hunting grounds because his skill was duplication and he only had an identification collar. The staff told him to wait a moment, because he was the first person after Jumper to request a copy of the access rights, so it would take some time. A moment later, the staff handed him the application form, told him to go to the Public Affairs Office and Equipment Room to go through the appropriate procedures, and he could request permission to take a test in the skills demonstration room. Sangwoo sweated as he looked at the pile of papers. There were so many papers. Junmo took the documents and helped him process them. He told him to go to the skill illustration room. After Junmo left, Sangwoo went to the skill illustration room. He called out his clone. The request to create an identical collar has been completed. Now your clones can also enter the hunting grounds by scanning their fingerprints. Considering the characteristics of the clone skill, entering and exiting multiple locations at once is possible, and the clone can also enter places he has entered before. Sangwoo took the bracelet and said thank you. The old man was extremely interested in looking at his clone over and over again. As far as he knew, there had never been a precedent like this, not only in Korea, but even in the world. Sangwoo didn't want to stay here any longer. He pulled the clone and left. Sangwoo meets Junmo again to inform him that the authorization request is complete. Finally, all the preparations for the hunt were complete. He planned to go to the hunting grounds today. The three of them were standing and talking when they were seen by Junmo's acquaintance. He was the head of the Haishun Association. He jumped down from the second floor. His defiant face turned to Junmo and asked if he was still a hunter. Junmo was furious but couldn't do anything, so he gritted his teeth and said, "Hello, sir." The old boss burst out laughing. He glanced at Sangwoo beside him, asking who he was. Junmo said he was a hunter affiliated with his company. The guild master glanced at Sangwoo from top to bottom, his face full of disdain. "You're an F rank, right?" The guild master held back his laughter until he trembled. "People say it's hard to be away from home. Sir Junmo, who used to supervise C and B rank hunters, has become like this. The guild master burst out laughing again. He was howling like crazy. He couldn't believe Junmo was instructing an F rank to wear such a stupid sweater. Junmo trembled with anger and was about to fight back. Sangwoo patted his shoulder to stop him. On the other side, the guild master still didn't stop. He looked at Sangwoo like he was an insect and asked him if he had anything to say. Sangwoo smiled. Contrary to his normal reaction, he said he was honored to meet the president of the country's leading corporation. The old boss was interested and praised him for having good eyes. Sangwoo added, he didn't mean just that. Not only was it the top corporation in the country, but it was also the top dungeon monopoly corporation in the country, the top in controlling hunting grounds, the top in payout rates. He couldn't believe the president of that corporation was praising him like this. He was so happy that he didn't know what to do. The guild master cracked his neck. He thought Sangwoo was quite brave. He didn't know when he had sneaked up behind Sangwoo. He wanted to test if his skills could keep up with his bravery. Sangwoo was sweating profusely as he looked back. Luckily for him, someone came forward at that moment to stop the guild master's next move. He let go of Sangwoo and asked what his name was. Sangwoo joked and said nothing, telling him to find the answer himself. The group left the association center. Junmo thanked him for what just happened. He said he wasn't stupid. He had discovered it by investigating a little about the JM organization. But there wasn't much information about it on the internet. While investigating, he saw a rumor about manager Kong Junmo. According to an insider, he was kicked out of the Haisheng group. Junmo realized that Sangwoo knew everything. He asked why Sangwoo chose our organization. Sangwoo didn't hesitate to speak frankly because of the payout ratio. Unexpectedly, the ratio was 82. Furthermore, if there is anything in this industry or this group that you cannot solve, you can trust Junmo. Junmo gratefully said thank you. At this time in the gym, Sangwoo's clone was practicing with great strength, to the point that his hands were bleeding. The people around him were whispering and worrying about him. Suddenly there was a message on his phone. The clone opened it to check and saw a message from Sangwoo telling him to finish his homework and take a shower, and wait for him in front of the gym at 4 o'clock. The clone listened and stopped practicing, went to drink water and rest. Sangwoo was in the hunting grounds, wearing full body protective gear and holding a hammer to poke slime. After leaving the hunting grounds, he took off his mask and complained. The gas mask was really cumbersome. He felt like he was wearing a bunch of masks and breathing. Junmo said the slime hunting grounds were quite safe, but hunters didn't usually go there, and the collection wasn't much. Sangwoo didn't think he could do this for long either. Junmo said he could hunt until the container was full, and once it was full he could change into the rented locker. However, no matter how patient a person was, it was hard to last 6 hours. Sangwoo knew for sure that he couldn't even do 2 hours, let alone 6 hours, so he would push the work to clone number 2. Sangwoo's tears flowed as he saw number 2 off into the hunting grounds. He turned to Junmo and told him to go to the horned rabbit hunting ground next. At this moment, he suddenly remembered about clone number 1. He hadn't picked him up at the gym yet. Sangwoo and Junmo went to the gym to pick up clone number 1. Junmo found it interesting that Sangwoo named the clones number 1 and number 2. They're clones anyway, so names don't matter. Giving them cool names will just get you into trouble. Sangwoo changed the subject again. He heard that people used guns to hunt unicorns, so shouldn't he prepare some equipment, like a gun or something? Junmo told him not to worry. He could use his own equipment, but he could also rent it from the hunting grounds. Junmo reminded him that it would be best to prepare his own equipment in the future, because rented equipment would only be allowed to be used in that hunting ground, making it easier to retrieve it that way. After a while, we arrived at the unicorn hunting ground. There were quite a few people guarding it outside. This place is the famous large-scale Yuyongsan hunting ground. The slime hunting ground cannot be compared. Sangwoo had heard of this hunting ground before, but the gate was basically not connected to the outside world, so most of the hunting happened after the hunter entered the gate. In some cases, a monster breaks through the gate, destroying the surroundings, and the place gradually becomes a hunting ground. That event is called Monster Break. 5 years ago, when the monster break occurred, most of the high-level monsters were destroyed. What remained were only E and F rank monsters, so hunters highly valued this place as a lucrative hunting ground. The two of them walked inside. Junmo pointed to the counter of a tall, muscular man who told him he could rent equipment there. The man threw him a box containing a bunch of equipment, a rifle, night vision goggles, earplugs, about 400 rounds of ammunition, and an entrance ticket, for a total of 700,000 won. Sangwoo stood unsteadily and gave his card, crying without tears. Was it that expensive? Junmo consoled him, since bullets took up the most of the expenses. But of course, if Sangwoo could successfully hunt the unicorn, then there would be no problem. The price of a unicorn was as expensive as a bucket of slime essence. Junmo led the way deeper into the hunting grounds, the three of them standing in front of a room's door. When the door opened, there was a loud bang of guns and a bunch of people hunting rabbits inside. Junmo showed him where to stand. His position was number 4. Sangwoo confidently held the gun. He bragged that the bullets he missed in the shooting test in the hunting exam were only 3. Junmo said nothing. The target was so close, but he still missed 3 bullets. Sangwoo loaded his gun and put on his earplugs. He confidently declared that those monsters would not be able to escape the barrel of his eagle eyes. Junmo felt embarrassed for him. He thanked God everyone here was wearing earplugs. Sangwoo looked through the scope. He shouted he saw a rabbit. He aimed straight at its head and pulled the trigger. 3 hours later, Sangwoo was in shock. He couldn't believe he couldn't even shoot a single one. How could this be possible? Sangwoo sighed in despair. Aiming was fine, but the rabbits were too cunning. As soon as the bullet was fired, they jumped away. Junmo had asked for permission to leave a while ago because it was already late. Sangwoo was so sad, he couldn't even earn back the money he spent on bullets. Should he give up today and go home? Sangwoo orders clone number 1 to hunt unicorn rabbits here and use a spear gun to pick them up for him. Tell him to text you number 1 every time he hits a target, and call you if he runs out of ammo. Sangwoo sighed in despair. He was going home now. He went home and lay on his bed and saw the mana notification continuously increasing. He comforted himself. At least number 2 was still killing monsters quite well. Although his stats were still increasing, compared to that guild master, there was still a long way to go. Sangwoo yawned tiredly. Hunting the unicorn was a mistake. He didn't think it would be this difficult. Sangwoo closed his eyes and wished that number 1 would catch at least one for honor. Then he fell asleep without noticing the constant messages number 1 sent him. Junmo was absent-mindedly in his office when suddenly someone called. They were the managers of the slime hunting ground, asking him to quickly come stop the clone Sangwoo. He had been hunting for more than 24 hours and was no longer able to stay awake. Junmo was stunned and quickly left. Sangwoo woke up at dawn, wondering if number 1 ran out of bullets yet. He opened his phone to check his messages and was stunned. Why were there so many messages? Junmo arrived at the slime hunting grounds. He couldn't believe that in just one day the clone had filled all these containers. The clone was still wearing his protective suit. Blood was flowing, but it did not stop. Junmo took out his phone and called Sangwoo to tell him the good news. His clones had filled up all the containers. He was about to call the monster cleanup team. He told Sangwoo to ask number 2 to stop hunting. Sangwoo is currently at the unicorn hunting ground. He asked Junmo to send someone over here. The pile of rabbit carcasses from the hunted rabbit number 1 has blocked the path here. The crowd gathered around number 1. They kept filming and discussing, unable to believe that number 1 had defeated all these rabbit corpses. Number 1, wearing a mask and a baseball cap, sat there in a daze. A broker from the Brown Bear Guild came over and gave him a business card, praising his shooting skills. He kept shaking the business card, but number 1 still didn't react. He tried to stay calm. His hand holding the business card trembled, comforting himself. Geniuses are always weird. No need to get angry. A broker from another guild laughed and reminded him, no matter how hard they tried to strike up a conversation, he couldn't say a word. The guy from the Brown Bear Guild was a bit skeptical. He should have said a word or two by now. Sangwoo put on his hood and secretly gave him more bullets. He told number 1 to keep hunting, and if Junmo came here, he should leave the rabbit carcasses to him. Sangwoo patted number 1 on the shoulder and praised him for doing a good job before leaving. Number 1 was praised with joy and excitement as he picked up his gun and continued hunting. The crowd surrounding him was excited again, ready to take pictures with their cameras. Sangwoo was tutoring Deokchil's daughter. He was absent-minded. He had underestimated what a clone could do. Now the clones have reached 50% stats. If you think about it simply, it means they can do 50% of what you can do. But there's something wrong here. It's like letting the machine play for him. The clone makes decisions without hesitation and with high concentration. Sangwoo was so lost in thought that he didn't notice Haeyeon calling him. When she called him so loudly, he was startled and dropped his pen. She asked him what he was thinking about and why he was so absent-minded. Sangwoo shyly gave the paper back to Haeyeon and praised her for doing better than last time. Haeyeon accepted the paper. She asked him what he was thinking about. Sangwoo rested his chin on his hand and answered casually. Just now, things went better than he thought when he passed by the hunting grounds. Who would have thought that upon hearing about the hunting grounds, Haeyeon would suddenly stand up and ask if he was a hunter? Sangwoo did not deny it either. Haeyeon sat down and took out her phone to search. She asked Sangwoo if he knew this guy. Today everyone was talking about this guy on the wiki. Haeyeon posted a video online. This is a genius hunter with sharp eyes like an eagle. Sangwoo looked shocked to the core, spitting out water. He trembled in disbelief. Who? Haeyeon was extremely excited and asked if he knew him. Everyone on the hunter wiki was crazy about this guy. This video shows him hunting over 200 rabbits. But he didn't say anything. Everyone thought he was cool and mysterious. When asked his name, he would just answer Yuyeonsan Eagle. Sangwoo was even more shocked after hearing that. He stood there speechless. Haeyeon looked at the video with admiration. She also wanted to become a hunter. Sangwoo asked her if she was awake and wanted to be a hunter. Haeyeon sighed, embarrassed. She also had a license but was a bit scared to go to the hunting grounds. Haeyeon hesitated for a moment. She asked Sangwoo in confusion if she got a high score on the next test. Could he take her there to hunt once? Sangwoo didn't see any problem. He said if she tried to get a high score on this exam, he would take her there. Haeyeon happily shouted. She raised her finger to tell Sangwoo to promise her. Sangwoo sighed and had to promise her. Sangwoo finished teaching and went out to prepare to go home. Haeyeon's mother asked him how Haeyeon was doing in school. Sangwoo said that she was doing very well and that she didn't need to worry about anything. Haeyeon's mother asked him to stay for dinner, but he had to go somewhere else, so he refused. Haeyeon put her ear to the door and eavesdropped. She jumped up with joy. She got to learn from Sangwoo. It turned out he was a hunter. That's why he could talk smoothly. At first she didn't like him because he was an acquaintance of her father's, but Sangwoo was very kind and taught well, and was also handsome, so she had a good feeling about him. Haeyeon chased away the evil thoughts in her head and sat down at the table determined to study. Sangwoo went to the unicorn hunting ground. When he arrived, the place was still bustling. Junmo called a bunch of people to collect rabbits. Junmo asked if he had seen the money he had sent. Sangwoo took out his phone. He had turned off notifications so he didn't see it. Sangwoo checked his account balance and froze. The number was over 32 million won. Sangwoo asked so many questions happily. Junmo said that his skill seemed to have passed F rank, so he raised it to 83% for an E rank hunter. Sangwoo rubbed his head awkwardly, but he wasn't an E level. While everyone was laughing and talking happily, a tough man approached. He pointed at Junmo and asked, "Are you the manager?" He was a hunter robbed of his prey. All the unicorn rabbits he was aiming for were taken by Sangwoo's clones. This hunt was a waste. He demanded compensation. Junmo turned to Sangwoo and whispered, "It seemed like they chose the wrong place." Sangwoo thought for a moment, then he came up with a brilliant idea and whispered into Junmo's ear. The man on the other side lost all patience. He demanded 10% bonus. Sangwoo burst out laughing. The other guy was so angry he asked, "What the hell are you laughing at?" Sangwoo patted the number one guy on the shoulder and implied, "Don't worry, this guy won't be here for the next few days." He pretended to turn around and tell Junmo to leave quickly. The other man was getting more and more annoyed, but Sangwoo still ignored him and walked past him. The guy was so angry that he turned around and raised his fist to attack him. Sangwoo used his mind to give orders to number one. Number one immediately rushed forward to protect Sangwoo. It ate the other man's punch completely. Number one flew far away and coughed up blood. The other man was startled. He didn't hit that hard. Sangwoo, who had been standing next to him, had already raised his phone to record everything. He pretended to be shocked and shouted, "This was too barbaric. This act of violence in a sacred hunting ground, if anyone knew, they wouldn't let it go." The man looked around and saw that other people were looking at him too. Sangwoo continued to act, "Oh my god, it would be bad if this video was posted on the hunter website. Our star, the Yuyongsan eagle, was attacked. It was too shocking." The man started to sweat nervously. Sangwoo held the video in front of him, patted the man's shoulder sympathetically, and asked him if he could go now. The other man gritted his teeth in anger but could do nothing. The three of them went to a cafe and sat down. Junmo thought that the hunter from earlier was a member of the Haisheng Guild. Since the Haisheng Guild was quite large, there were all kinds of people. Sangwoo asked him how he knew. Junmo had been staring at him since he stepped into the hunting ground to collect the rabbit carcass. This could be a revenge plan. They did this because they thought number one was another hunter who had signed a contract with them. Hunters from JM Company had also encountered this kind of situation before. Junmo was sad. This was a bit embarrassing, but the previous hunters usually didn't extend their contracts for long and left. Now there were only a few F-rank hunters left, including Sangwoo. Junmo also couldn't promise anything about stopping the Haisheng group. Sangwoo shook his glass of water. He told Junmo not to try to change his mind. He knew about this but still joined the gang. He definitely wouldn't let those bastards bully them like that. Sangwoo has a plan to get stronger quickly. He talks endlessly about his plan to Junmo. After listening, Junmo took out his notebook to take notes. He had never thought of it that way before. How about he make an appointment with Sangwoo at 2 p.m. tomorrow? Sangwoo happily agreed. The two agreed on a location and left. The next day the two went to the hunter supermarket. The transactions of weapons, armor and other equipment for hunters had always been very popular from the beginning. But a type of department store has entered the hunter market industry and has taken a key position in the industry. Because of that, all kinds of equipment that hunters need are always available. Sangwoo wears a sturdy titanium armor that is guaranteed against any E-rank monster. Sangwoo praised it, very comfortable, and very light. He really liked this set. As for weapons, Sangwoo pulled out the small knife on his hip. He said he would practice shooting better, so this was enough. Sangwoo asked the shopkeeper to give him 2 more sets of armor like the one he was wearing. Junmo asked if he needed to find the closeness skill too. Sangwoo replied yes, but he wasn't sure if it was there. The two of them searched a few more times and finally found it. The intimate skill could share vision and senses with pets. As he looked at the price tag of nearly 200 million, Sangwoo trembled and cried like a dog. He turned to Junmo to build a good comradely relationship in order to advance his salary. Junmo cried without tears. He could only lend him 50 million now. Sangwoo successfully bought the ice ball home. He took out the instruction manual and read it, pouring mana into the skill orb. For those who couldn't control mana, he turned on the orb's button while keeping it in contact with his body. Sangwoo didn't know how to use mana. He fumbled around to find the button. Holding the remote in his hand, he trembled and touched the sphere, then closed his eyes and resolutely turned on the switch. The orb evaporated, the close-range skill was created. Sangwoo called the 2 clones back and prepared to continue. He had discussed it with Junmo before. He had an idea to help them get stronger very quickly. He never imagined the result of the hunting trip the other day. The clones had half the stamina, endurance, and reaction time he had, yet they hunted 300 unicorn rabbits while he caught none. Even the part where he ordered the clone to take the hunter's punch and act as pathetic as possible. But timing it perfectly and calmly putting your face in front of that guy's fist was no easy task. Although the clone's clone stats were low, they had excellent body control. So Sangwoo wanted to take advantage of this strength. First, he sent 2 clones each to a different training ground, one to practice long-range weapon skills and one to practice short-range. He will train the clones extremely harshly so that they reach their limits. The 2 clones, after learning just a few basic moves, easily defeated their opponents and destroyed the target. Second, you need intimacy skills. It's not just about sharing vision, it's about sharing senses, sense, touch, and connecting other feelings. Sangwoo stood in another location, using close-range skills while the clones were sparring or practicing gunplay. You can experience everything: the distance in the sparring match, the angle of the joints, the balance of the body, the movement of the muscles and the feeling of power flowing, all the movements of the clone. He could feel it all. From the air pressure as the weapon passed by, the smell of gunpowder and the recoil and the fatigue that still hadn't gone away. Even though he didn't move an inch, he still felt it all because he experienced the movements of the clone whose body was identical to his. Sangwoo felt like he could imitate those movements right now. The system notification panel appeared, his stamina and reflexes increased. Sangwoo stretched his limbs and prepared himself mentally. Today he would try both sparring and shooting. Sangwoo decided to go to number 1 first. He activated the skill to synchronize to number 1. At this time, number 1 had already fought the coach. The two exchanged moves for dozens of rounds, and the coach was somewhat pressured by number 1. Even though number 1's attacks are crude, as if he has never used a baton before, his defense is formidable and his dodging is top-notch. The coach tightened his abs and flexed his butt muscles to resist number 1. His punch was too strong, he copied his. The coach flicked the stick. He hit another blow towards number 1, but it dodged, and also poked the coach's shoulder with the stick. He clicked his tongue. Number 1 was about to strike another blow when the coach took the opportunity to jump up, attacking from above, knocking the stick out of number 1's hand that was about to strike down. The people around applauded. Their coach was not ordinary either. Sangwoo shouted silently, "Save me, my wrist." The coach picked up the stick and asked number 1 if he wanted to continue. Sangwoo also worriedly asked number 1 if he was okay. It said nothing and got into a fighting stance, jumping up imitating the coach's previous movements. Sangwoo jumped to seat number 2. This side was tense with the strong smell of gunpowder. There was a couple who kept praising each other. Number 2 shot the clay objects of the people beside him. Sangwoo ignored them, focusing on shooting. Following number 2's actions, he also focused his mind to feel. The upper body is stable. The body does not move and only turns in the direction of the shot following the trajectory of the clay ball. When the target matches, the gun is fired and the clay ball shatters. Sangwoo tried to remember every little detail. He had to take in everything his clone had. After jumping back and forth for a while, Sangwoo wiped his sweat. He felt a bit dizzy. His mana was depleted. He was really dizzy. Sangwoo sat on the chair and sighed. The movements of the clones were crazy. Maybe because they are fearless and don't think much, their concentration is quite high. Consider that you have some experience. You will try practicing next time. While he was looking at the sky, the ground and the clouds, Haeyeon, his favorite student, passed by. He asked her what she was doing here so late. Haeyeon replied that she had just come back from the library. The two of them chatted happily, not noticing a group of rude people staring at them from afar. One of them was the one who caused trouble at the last unicorn hunt, and he was reprimanded by the boss for not doing his job. The guy was embarrassed and apologized. He just wanted to scare him a little, but someone came out of nowhere and filmed it. The other side asked him if he was being filmed beating someone up. He hurriedly explained, but before he could finish, the other side interrupted. Tell him to shut up, stop barking, and don't come near Yuyeonsan. No matter what happens, he has nothing to do with the Haisheng group anymore. The other side left a sentence that the street kid deleted the market and hung up. The man immediately became angry. He just swore, threw the phone against the wall and stomped on it continuously. While I was venting my anger, suddenly two other guys came to visit, a fat guy and a long-haired guy. He told the whole story to the two people who had just arrived. The fat guy was his senior. The fat guy holding a cigarette scolded the stupid guy. Joining that number 1 club was stupid. The guy bowed his head in apology, asked the fat guy if he had anything to do, and now the guild told him not to come near Yuyeonsan Stadium again. The fat guy turned to ask the long-haired guy if he had any work for him to do. Suddenly he saw Sangwoo's figure in the distance and shouted, accusing him of being the guy filming him. The fat guy asked him if he was sure. The angry man walked over. He was extremely sure. Standing behind the pillar, the man's eyes were red with anger. Sangwoo and Haeyeon were talking when 3 guys came out. The fat guy in the lead asked if he was the one who bullied his younger brother. Sangwoo didn't know who this fat guy was. He saw the familiar face of the person behind him and realized. Sangwoo stood up and calmly asked the fat guys what was going on. The man behind couldn't take it anymore. He yelled at Sangwoo to stop pretending to be innocent. The fat man stopped his junior's actions. He bared his teeth and asked Sangwoo, I heard you have a video of my brother accidentally doing something rash. Delete it and we will rashly retreat. Sangwoo held out his phone and asked again, is there anything to guarantee his words? The fat guy stroked his lips. His attitude completely changed. There was no way he would leave him alone. Sangwoo realized the tense situation. He put his phone in his pocket and whispered to Haeyeon to find a chance to run away. The fat guy and his juniors cracked their knuckles and got into position. He ordered the other two to charge forward. Sangwoo had to fight 2 guys at once, so he had a hard time. They punched him so hard that he fell to the ground several times, bleeding profusely. Haeyeon stood anxiously in front of him. She trembled as she called out her powerball, threatening the others to quickly retreat. The 2 juniors were a bit worried when they saw that Haeyeon was an awakened person and didn't dare to rush forward anymore. The fat guy knocked each of them on the head. What the hell are they afraid of? There are more awakened people than vegetables in the market now. Haeyeon shot a ball of light at the fat guy, which he easily blocked. He swung his fat, flabby arm towards her. Sangwoo jumped out from somewhere and blocked it. He returned the punch to the fat guy's face. The fat guy lost his balance and fell back, holding his face. The junior saw his boss being hit and rushed forward to fight back. Sangwoo put his theory into practice. He carefully observed the other guy's movements, dodged to the side to avoid it, then threw a punch with everything from head to groin straight at the other guy's face. The long-haired guy took that opportunity to attack. He knew he couldn't dodge the long-haired guy's attack, so he used a double attack and landed a smack on the long-haired guy. Both sides were panting. The fat guy was angry. He didn't expect Sangwoo to have some martial arts. The fat guy started to seriously charge forward. Sangwoo used every skill to dodge and fight back against the fat guy. He was hit several times in a row, but Sangwoo still didn't stop. He had to punch hard and fast, making the fat guy lose his strength. In the next few consecutive attacks, Sangwoo nimbly dodged the fat guy's pig's hoof. The fat guy saw that he couldn't hit him even once. His blood boiled even more. His arm muscles tensed up to the maximum, intending to hit him. Sangwoo was about to dodge when the long-haired guy grabbed his leg, making him unable to move. So he took the fat guy's punch and flew backwards, hitting the wall. Sangwoo was panting. He felt it was hard to breathe. The fat guy was getting closer and closer to him. He swung his arm to strike again. Sangwoo thought he was finished. He closed his eyes and waited for death. Suddenly an explosion rang out. The fat guy who got hit opened his mouth. The one who attacked was Haeyeon. The two juniors saw that and immediately stood up and rushed towards her. When they were about to attack, Sangwoo's two clones returned in time to knock them out. Sangwoo stood up from the ground. He wiped the blood from his mouth, finally able to breathe. The fat guy cursed and then charged forward to attack. Sangwoo jumped back into the air and struck down, causing the fat guy to fall to the ground unconscious, unable to say anything more. Sangwoo was also exhausted. He received a system notification that his stats had increased, and his temporary clone skill had also leveled up. He sighed and fell to the ground. The clones worriedly ran over to see. After the two finished bandaging, Sangwoo took Haeyeon home, the two of them talking all the way. Haeyeon already knew that the famous rookie hunter was Sangwoo's clone. He told her not to reveal that. After a while, the two of them stood in front of Haeyeon's house. He kindly asked if her hand was okay. Haeyeon happily said she was fine. Sangwoo thanked her for helping him. If it weren't for her he wouldn't have been able to defeat that fat guy. Haeyeon's face turned red. She told him that if he wanted to thank her, he should have bought some meat dishes instead of just saying it. Sangwoo promised to buy it for her and then the two said goodbye to each other. Sangwoo and his two clones returned. Suddenly remembering something, he asked the two clones why they were following him, and that they should work hard. The two clones said it was late, and all the shooting ranges were closed. Sangwoo took two branches from the ground, gave each clone a branch, told them they could do it in the park, and then went home. A month later, Junmo called Sangwoo to ask how things were going, and Sangwoo replied that everything was fine. Now he could even shoot with a pistol, and his clone skill level had also increased. Junmo happily congratulated him. Sangwoo looked at his own stats that had increased to 1.4. He told Junmo he wanted to receive 3 F-rank hunting grounds for tomorrow. Junmo was shocked after hearing that, but he still promised to find those areas for him at all costs. Sangwoo planned to have the clones train in the morning and go hunting in the afternoon. The two of them finalized the schedule for a while and then ended the call. After ending the call, Sangwoo ordered the 3 clones to go to the park, come back before 12 o'clock and leave their guns at home. The 3 clones obeyed and left immediately. Sangwoo surfed the internet. He sighed. From the clones' training he could see they had learned very well. Before moving the body was impossible, otherwise they could copy and reproduce almost everything. He wondered what would happen if he learned all these monsters and the proper ways to hunt them. Thinking is doing, Sangwoo began his journey of learning. In the blink of an eye a night had passed. When he saw the clones return he realized it was already 12 o'clock. Sangwoo yawned. These guys were still full of energy. Even if they worked all day they wouldn't be tired. He ordered them to take a shower and then go eat. Sangwoo had already seen most of the guides for F-rank monsters. Now he needed to check if the clone was actually hunting by following the instructions. Sangwoo would go check out what was going on and experience hunting to get used to the battle using familiar skills and then learn about mana during breaks. Sangwoo received a message from Junmo. He urged the clones who hadn't had time to sit down yet to eat quickly and get ready to go. Sangwoo pulled the clones to Junmo's meeting place. He asked if the training area was ready. Junmo replied that he had found 3 areas not too far from each other. Sangwoo left the 3 clones to Junmo to take care of while he himself stayed home to study using his remote skills. He also had to practice his mana breathing technique. After the car left, Sangwoo returned to his room, closed his eyes, and meditated by following the audio instructions to breathe in and out. He tried to remember the feeling of using the skill. A light slowly accumulated in his body. Sangwoo suddenly opened his eyes. He received the meditation skill. Meditating by stabilizing the mind, mental fatigue will be slightly recovered, growth speed and mana recovery speed will be slightly increased. In a certain hunting ground, a hunter struggled to escape step by step. He cursed nonstop, "Why is that monster here?" This was clearly an F-rank dungeon. They just came here to hunt some exotic fish. He had to report this to the authorities. But the monster did not let him escape, baring its sharp teeth as it tore the hunter's body apart. At that moment, Junmo brought his clone to the location, the wastewater treatment plant. He said there were exotic fish here, famous for having strong jaws. The clone replied, "Understand," and went inside. Junmo took out his phone to tell Sangwoo that he had brought the 3 of them there. He himself couldn't believe that a hunter was hunting in 3 different places, and the original was in the room. This ability was truly top-notch. Meanwhile, at Sangwoo's house, he was elated because he had received the mana breathing skill, truly a once-in-a-thousand-years genius, but his joy didn't last 3 seconds. The phone reminded him to continue to sense the mana and continue to breathe. Don't mistake meditation and mana breathing skills as one. Sangwoo was bored. He also guessed that it would be difficult to get the mana breathing skill, so he suddenly got overly excited. Embarrassed, he picked up his phone and saw that the 3 clones had arrived. Sangwoo used his familiar skill to go to that training ground. As soon as he entered, he saw a mouse with its beak stabbed open. Sangwoo was startled. What the hell is this? Calmly looking back, he realized that number 1 was hunting. Sangwoo continued to observe the surroundings. Number 1, according to the theory Sangwoo saw in the video, the giant rat was one of the most annoying monsters among the F-rank monsters. If you plan on hunting them, it's best to form a party, and if you have no choice but to play solo, there are ways to succeed. First, because the rats will rush straight up, so keep your distance and shoot. Of course, it's impossible to take them all down by shooting, so switch to close combat. Their skulls are very hard, so you have to aim for their ribs. The rats were very fertile, just like normal rats, so their numbers were very large. Number 1 calmly took them down one by one. Sangwoo jumped to number 2 again to see, his clones could indeed hunt just like him, and using the skills he had, they weren't even panicked or scared at all. They hunt without regard to the opponent's level, and you can experiment with hunting with familiar skills. Sangwoo's stats increased little by little, and his clones also became stronger. Today you will wipe out the F-rank monsters. After hunting for a while, Sangwoo suddenly remembered that something was missing. He hadn't collected the monster corpses yet, and his money had gone with the wind. Immediately he ordered the 3 clones to quickly return and collect the monsters' bodies, otherwise the money would disappear without a trace. Sangwoo cried without tears. Sangwoo pointed at the fish on the other side and said, "Number 3, why don't you gather them up?" He said he didn't hunt those, whoever hunted them can gather them up. Sangwoo's eyes twitched. He pointed at the number 3 and warned, "It's all money, don't act like that." Number 3 obediently went to collect them. Sangwoo looked at the crushed fish and felt disgusted. Number 3 pulled an arm out of the fish and asked Sangwoo if he needed to collect this. It wasn't a fish. Sangwoo saw the hand and froze. Suddenly there was movement behind. The two turned to look around warily. Number 3 saw the movement and turned to the right. It was just a fish head. It was just a trap. The kingfish had been standing behind it for a while. Number 3 didn't react in time, and was about to turn around and shoot when the fish knocked one of his arms off. Sangwoo screamed in pain, feeling as if his arm was cut off. His mind returned to his body. Sangwoo trembled as he looked at his hand, still intact. The connection just now had been severed by the pain. Sangwoo was still in shock. He called Junmo and told him to come to hunting ground number 3. Without much time to explain, Sangwoo quickly put on his shoes and left, calling number 1 and number 2 as well. On the other side, number 3 is struggling to hold on to the giant 6-pack muscle fish. Sangwoo arrived at number 3's hunting ground. He lost connection with number 3, and had to wait a long time to summon it. He passed through the checkpoint and joined Junmo and the other 2 clones. Only then did Sangwoo explain the situation clearly to Junmo. The monsters inside the hunting grounds were very strong. Number 3 had already disappeared. Sangwoo described the creature as having a fish head, bulging 6-pack muscles, complete limbs, in other words a mermaid. Junmo was startled. He had to report this to the higher-ups and temporarily close this place. The monster Sangwoo just mentioned is a monster called a mermaid. Its rank is D. Even a team of E-rank hunters can't do anything to it. Sangwoo tells Junmo to tell the guards to stop other hunters from entering after his clone enters. He couldn't sit still. He wanted Junmo to trust him the way he trusted his clone. Sangwoo continued to activate his familiar skill and entered with 2 clones. They crept to where number 3 disappeared first. At this moment the monster was munching on human corpses. They had to take this opportunity to attack. Even though his current stats were on par with an E-rank hunter, his clones only had about 53% of that. They were only around F rank at most. But the merman wasn't in his best condition right now. If he added the hunting skills of his clones along with his good coordination with his clones, it was still possible. He ordered his clone to shoot the fish in the head. But both bullets that hit the fish's head were bounced off. The 2 clones stood there dumbfounded. The bullets had no effect at all. The merman slowly stood up, baring his fangs and claws as he roared. The mermaid jumped towards the 2 clones. Number 1 and number 2 jumped up to attack the fish from behind but only managed to cause a tiny cut on its body. The fish swung its sword up and slashed, hitting several trees in the forest. Sangwoo breathed a sigh of relief. Luckily the fish's body was large so it would be difficult to swing its sword in the middle of the forest like this. But the words had to be taken back as soon as they were uttered. The fish slashed the tree away in a blink of an eye. Number 1 and number 2 continued to attack the fish with knives on its arms but to no avail. It swung its fist number 2 and it flew far away and hit the opposite tree. Sangwoo cursed, "Damn it, if the attack keeps being useless like this, how the hell can he hunt this big guy?" Sangwoo suddenly remembered the 2 bullets he had shot at the fish, number 1 and number 2. The first bullet bounced back immediately but the second bullet did some damage. He ordered the clone to target the fish's wound again, and sure enough, it worked. Sangwoo seemed to see the sunlight. He ordered his 2 clones to feed the fish with copper candy. Number 1 and number 2 nimbly dodged the attacks, jumping everywhere and continuously shooting at the fish's wounds. The fish was boiling with anger. The sword in its hand turned red and slashed towards the clone. Number 1 raised his hand to block the attack but was thrown away, vomiting blood. The fish was stronger than before. Sangwoo quickly realized that the sword it was holding was reacting to its blood, which meant the fish was quite injured, so it was probably only temporarily stronger. The two clones continued to attack the fish's wound. It painfully punched Number 1 straight in the stomach. Sangwoo also felt pain all the way to his navel. Number 1 held the hand of the fish that had just punched him, while he used his other hand to stab the fish repeatedly with a knife. The fish screamed in pain. It swung its first kick away and swung its sword to slash down. At that moment, Number 2 rushed to support Number 1, then the two clones continued to rush forward to attack. After a series of attacks, the fish was too badly injured and bled too much, it could no longer hold on and fell down. The two clones were also exhausted, breathing heavily like cows and then lying on the ground. They couldn't walk anymore. Out of ammo, Sangwoo thought that was enough hunting for today. Let's stop here. Thought he was dead. Sangwoo sat up to report to the manager but realized that the fish behind him had disappeared. He ordered Number 2 to follow the fish. Following the footprints, the fish headed towards the main gate. At this time, the guard team outside also received a report that a D-class monster appeared inside this hunting ground, so the entrance was blocked. They informed the newly arrived hunters that a team of hunters from the association would be dispatched soon, so if there were any changes they would report back immediately. Just then, something happened at the entrance. The monster was approaching the gate and was about to rush out. The gatekeepers tried their best to open fire to stop the monster from getting out. But the gun was of no use. The fish had already rushed out the gate. Number 2 from behind threw a knife from the inside out, hitting the fish's head, bouncing up. Sangwoo jumped out from somewhere, grabbed the knife, and used all his strength to slash straight at the wound on its head. The fish was in pain and blood was splattered everywhere. Sangwoo still did not loosen his grip. He continued to stab with force. The fish fell down and was gone forever. Number 2 proudly shed tears and gave a thumbs up in praise. A while later the hunter from the association also arrived. When he arrived the merman was lying in a pool of blood. He asked what just happened here. The gatekeeper explained that a D-rank monster appeared but a hunter entered the portal before the lockdown and hunted the monster. The people from the association were skeptical. Isn't this an F-rank hunting ground? Why is there a D-rank team here? The gatekeeper hurriedly explained, it's not a D-rank hunter or a group of hunters. They are still investigating, but as far as they know an F-rank hunter took down the monster along with his clones. The association people looked at the condition of the fish. Any attack on that wound must have caused damage since there was no special weapon. But is it really possible to accurately shoot at the wound position of a moving monster? He said he would go check to see if there were any more monsters in the gate, telling the gatekeeper to finish his investigation before he returned. The association hunter sighed. How should he tell the association? It would be a bit too much to just say that he killed that monster himself. Sangwoo on the other side, after defeating the monster, unlocked a series of skills. Sprinting skills, regeneration skills, attack skills, and other stats were also raised at the same time. Sangwoo wiped the blood off his body. He had unlocked so many skills this time. He was so busy fighting that he didn't notice. Just now, Number 1 and Number 2 were beaten up and didn't disappear. They must have had a lot of regeneration skills. Junmo worriedly asked Number 1, how is Number 2? Sangwoo said they were injured but needed some cooldown time before he could summon them again, and he thought letting them heal on their own would help increase their regeneration stat. Junmo laughed and praised Sangwoo for being really good, taking down a D-rank monster. He thought that now Sangwoo would be fine taking down an E-rank monster alone. Sangwoo suddenly remembered that the salmon just now had an extremely unique short sword that could absorb blood. He was about to reach for the sword when Junmo stopped him. He said he should tell the clone to take the sword. Maybe this sword is cursed. Sangwoo asked if cursed items can't be used. Junmo explains that cursed items are rare, so they can be priced based on their effects. Sangwoo's eyes lit up when he heard about money. He listened to Junmo and let the clone keep the sword, leaving the cleaning up to the cleaning team. He thought that was enough for today. If he stayed any longer, the reporters would probably swarm over. Sangwoo took something out of his pocket and showed it to Junmo. He asked him if it was expensive. It fell from the head of the fish. Junmo was startled and looked at the stone Sangwoo was holding in his hand. This was a low-grade gem. It was a worthless object. But looking at Sangwoo's expectant face, Junmo didn't dare to say anything. He told him that this gem wasn't worth much. It was just a stab-boosting item, but it wasn't used much because of its serious side effects. That's why it was so cheap. Sangwoo felt like salt was rubbed into his heart after hearing that. He threw the gem on the ground. I don't need it anymore. Sangwoo said goodbye to Junmo and took his two clones home. Number 1 and Number 2 lay on the bed like zombies. Sangwoo spread his bag on the ground and summoned Number 3 to see what would happen. Sangwoo gave the equipment to Number 3 and told him to go practice. Sangwoo sat down and took out the sword and gem that he had just hated to look at. He picked up the gem and checked its attributes. This gem was a low-level power-up gem. A crystal that can enhance power. Cannot be used by humans. It works on summoned entities but will turn into monsters. This gem increases strength by 0.005. It's tempting, but the stats make him uneasy. Normally, injuries on a clone or other feelings wouldn't affect you, but what if you were accidentally turned into a monster that wasn't a clone but you? Thinking about himself turning into an ugly monster, Junmo was so scared that he pulled out his gun, so Sangwoo had to put the gem away. He wouldn't use it for now. He opened the sword again, just in case. He put it in this box and carried it here. It's okay to sell it because it's worth money, but if you use it before selling it, it's still okay, right? Sangwoo ordered number 2 to hold up his sword. Sangwoo expected something to happen but nothing happened. Is that all? Number 2 honestly declared that he heard a voice. Sangwoo used close-range skill to enter number 2. As soon as he entered, his head hurt. Full of killing sounds, Sangwoo immediately escaped. Number 2 didn't seem to react either. It seemed that if it wasn't for the loud noise, the clone wouldn't be affected. If he held it directly, he wouldn't know what would happen. No wonder the fish was generating electricity. He told number 2 to hold the sword for a while longer. The system announced that the regeneration rate had increased. Resting would help them recover a bit faster. Sangwoo was troubled. He had to take them hunting tomorrow. But now that the situation was like this, he ordered the clones to unlock the mana breath. Today we will meditate together. The next morning, Sangwoo went to school after a long break. His stats had also increased significantly. But there was something more important. No one came to greet him. Sangwoo had no idea he was this lonely. He went into class. He met his friend. He asked why he was in this class. He said he chose this department because the professor was easygoing. He gave generous grades. Sangwoo sat down and chatted with his friend. The people around him started whispering. Is that Sangwoo? Wasn't he fab before? Now he's completely transformed. Sangwoo asked his friend again, have you changed a lot? My friend chuckled and asked me if I had seen my parents yet. I'm sure they wouldn't recognize me either. His friend invited Sangwoo to go drinking after school but he refused, saying he had an appointment and couldn't go. His friend made a scene and shouted that Sangwoo was a traitor. He left his friend for a girl. Sangwoo couldn't stop his friend's loud mouth. His other 2 friends heard it too. They were filled with hatred. They would all remember the day Sangwoo betrayed them. Just then the professor entered the classroom and ended the noisy chaos. At the World Health Organization, WA, they have calculated a disaster. A gate will form. Thousands of monsters will pour out from it. The highest monster level is A and the gate is very likely to open in the next few days. The location is South Korea. Immediately after receiving the news, the association organized a meeting of the leading association presidents across the country. This cat-eared girl is Han Miho, the leader of the 6th-ranked YOLO guild in the nation. This man is Park Wante, the leader of the 3rd-ranked Kindness guild in the nation. The two met by chance on the street and then went into the meeting room together. The other guild leaders were there. Among them was old man Shin Haesong, the leader of the Haesong guild, the leader of the whole country. An extremely hateful character. He greeted Wante but Wante tried to ignore him and didn't want to talk. But Haesong didn't let it go that easily. He poked at the pain. He mentioned that Wante's guild's team 1 had recently gone to Odin Tower but there had been no news for several days. The 2nd-ranking guild leader Kim Il-gun saw this and said that Haesong was going too far. Haesong still didn't care about anyone, just sat there laughing happily. Wante's eyes were red but he could only hold back and say nothing. Just then, the president of the Korean Hunter Association walked in. Seeing the tense atmosphere in the room, he cleared his throat and sat down. He announced that a monster disaster was about to hit the country, and because of the suspicion that there might be A-class monsters, the Hunter Association was asked to cooperate with the strongest guilds in the country. Someone asked when and where it would take place. The association president replied indifferently. Except for the possibility that it would take place domestically, they had no further specific information. The nation's 2nd-ranked guild leader Il-gun angrily slammed the table and shouted, "So we have to protect the entire country? While we don't know the location of the gate." The association president shyly raised the documents to cover his face. The only thing they knew was that disaster would strike soon. The other guilds were also starting to stir. They didn't even have enough hunters to handle their own affairs. How could they prevent a disaster without knowing the time and place? The other associations kept asking questions, leaving the association president confused and not knowing what to do. Wante raised his hand to comment. He proposed that each guild would prepare a group of hunters that could be sent out at any time of emergency, to check the locations around their area, and when a disaster occurred, all guilds would concentrate their full strength at that location. There are no exceptions. This is mandatory and any association that fails to comply will be severely punished. The association president also found this to be a reasonable idea. He asked the others if anyone had any other opinions, and they would decide by raising their hands. The other association leaders had no opinions, and raised their hands in unison. The chairman breathed a sigh of relief, finally coming to a conclusion. The meeting ended. The other guilds continued to protect their areas and maintain close cooperative relationships. After class ended, Sangwoo happily picked up his backpack and went home. In the distance he saw a guy flirting with Haeyeon. He coaxed her into giving him her phone number. Haeyeon tried to refuse by saying she had a boyfriend but the guy still wouldn't let go. Trying to hold on, Sangwoo approached Haeyeon and asked why she was here. Haeyeon felt like she had found a life-saving straw. She called Sangwoo honey and ran to hug him and pull him away. Sangwoo didn't understand what was happening. After leaving the guy, Haeyeon explained the situation to him. She tried to emphasize that she didn't have a boyfriend to Sangwoo. He didn't react. She changed the subject and asked why she asked him to buy meat for her. Didn't she have school today? Haeyeon started to fall into a narcissistic spiral. She asked Sangwoo if he couldn't take his eyes off her usual appearance? If he wanted her number? Sangwoo was dumbfounded, his hands clenched. I've had her number for a long time. Suddenly he received a text message from Junmo saying he had paid the money. He checked his account. He saw that he had earned another 50 million. The clone was really the best. Sangwoo excitedly told Haeyeon to go quickly and choose the most expensive meat to eat. The two of them went to a Korean beef restaurant to eat. The meat was delicious, but Haeyeon was still worried about the price. Sangwoo told her to just eat and not to worry about anything. The two were eating and drinking heartily when suddenly an emergency announcement came from the TV. At this moment, a disaster announcement was being broadcast across the country. This was an extremely serious matter, everyone pay attention. Sangwoo's friend Jongdu cried his eyes out. It was so unfair. Why did Sangwoo get to play with women while they had to walk around alone? They saw Sangwoo eating with Haeyeon through the glass door, constantly cursing him for being a traitorous bastard. Just then Jongdu received a notification. He took it out to read. Everyone online is buzzing about the disaster, but no one at school is saying anything. Just then, Sangwoo and Haeyeon finished their meal and went out. They asked who the girl next to Sangwoo was she his girlfriend? Sangwoo said no, she was his student, he just invited her to have a meal. The two sides greeted each other and introduced themselves. Sangwoo gave Haeyeon a package and told her to take it home to eat with her parents. He had asked the staff to wrap up the leftover food they had just eaten. He told her to be careful when she got home and not to wander around anymore. Haeyeon blushed and asked Sangwoo, is there nothing else today? Is that all? Sangwoo still indifferently told her to hurry home. Her parents wouldn't be happy if they were still out on the streets when there was a disaster warning. Sangwoo's friends said he nagged too much and was as stubborn as an old man. Sangwoo got angry and yelled at his friends to leave. After seeing his friends and Haeyeon off, he looked around and saw everyone was still calm as if nothing had happened, still happily laughing and talking as usual. Sangwoo picked up the phone and called Junmo to ask about the disaster. Junmo said that the information is not official yet, but the association is planning to keep this alert status for at least 3 more months. Since they don't know when and where the space gate will appear, the number of monsters that will invade will be huge and it will be quite dangerous. They even said that there might be a rank monsters, so if the space gate appears in the capital, there will be a lot of casualties. Sangwoo couldn't understand, if it was that dangerous, shouldn't the association provide more information to the people and strongly ask everyone to be more careful? Like sending out hunters from the association. The problem, Junmo explained, is that the economy and vital supplies will be greatly affected in the 3 months if they stop people from going to work for such a long period of time, and the association will be blamed for those losses. That's why they don't have full information. So no matter what happens, at least they can say that they warned the people. Junmo said he would go to the shelter right now. The hunting grounds were also quarantined so no one could hunt in this situation. Sangwoo also told him to go home and the two ended the call. Sangwoo went home to ask about number 1 and number 2. Number 2 is almost fine but number 1 has a pretty serious injury and is still bedridden. Sangwoo looked at the cooldown time and decided to re-summon number 1. He gave the new hat to number 1 to help him block 3 clones. At that moment, number 3 also returned. The 3 of them returned home to visit Sangwoo's parents. Sangwoo's mother opened the door. She froze for a moment, almost not recognizing her son. His father and younger sister also warmly welcomed him. His younger sister even asked him directly who he was. Sangwoo's mother noticed the clones behind him. She asked who they were they his friends? Sangwoo told the clone to take off his mask. The people in the house screamed in surprise. After a while of explaining, the whole family understood that it was Sangwoo's skill. A month ago, he participated in the awakening program. Sangwoo's father asked if he wanted to be a hunter too, but his mother didn't agree because it was very dangerous. Sangwoo tries to explain to his family that he is not in any danger, the clones are hunting for him. Sangwoo told his parents that there was a disaster warning and they should go to a shelter, but his father didn't seem to care. Let's see, he still had to go to work tomorrow, they couldn't pack up and leave the house so suddenly. Sangwoo sighed. His father didn't know how serious the situation was because the rest of society was still quite calm. He decided to stay here with everyone from today. He lied that he received notice from the school that school was closed. Sangwoo took out the bag of Korean beef he brought back earlier and told his family to eat together. Sangwoo's mother intended to invite the clones to eat, but he said that just giving them a little rice would be fine. There was no need to eat so lavishly. The whole family sat down at the dining table, 3 clones sitting around a large bowl of rice. The whole family was happily eating when suddenly the wall collapsed. Sangwoo was unconscious for a moment. He opened his eyes and looked around to see his house in ruins, with monsters flying all over the sky outside. What the hell was going on? A giant dragon roared loudly. It gathered a fireball and shot it out in the surroundings. Sangwoo panicked and turned back to see the situation of his family. Everyone was unconscious. Number 1 had disappeared. He used his body to protect everyone from the explosion. Number 3 was seriously injured, losing an arm, not expecting the gate to open so quickly. The family members also slowly woke up. He pulled out his gun, told everyone to leave quickly. The space gate had opened, many people would be in danger. Monsters are constantly rampaging in the city, capturing and killing people. Everywhere is chaos. Sangwoo gave the number 1 outfit he had worn to his sister, and the family prepared to evacuate. Just then a monster fell from the sky. It looked at Sangwoo and chuckled. The gate appeared in the sky. Many other monsters also fell down. These monsters did not know how to fly, so falling from such a height also caused serious injuries. Sangwoo easily took care of them. On the other side, Sangwoo's family tried to open the door but couldn't. He took the baseball bat his father was holding in his hand and activated the skill to strengthen a lock-breaking attack. Everyone got out of the apartment building, but all the vehicles were broken. The nearest shelter was 2 kilometers away and there were still many monsters falling without any effect. Sangwoo's sister told everyone to use the underground basement. There was also a temporary shelter below. The group was about to move there when suddenly they heard someone calling for help. They turned around and saw a man trapped under the rubble. The monster nearby also suddenly opened its eyes. It was a D-class monster. Sangwoo's father told him to think carefully. The current situation was not for them to save others. They had to go down. Sangwoo gritted his teeth and turned away. Number 3 couldn't fight anymore. Besides, with only number 2, he couldn't save him. He wasn't a clone to be able to use the fusion skill. If he died, he would really die. The man on the other side cried more and more miserably. On one side was the sound of his family constantly urging him to leave. On the other side was a desperate cry for help. Sangwoo decided to go save people. He told his family to go down there and close the door carefully and wait for him. Number 2 went with him to save people and number 3 stayed to protect his family. Sangwoo is a hunter. In a situation where monsters are flooding out like this, the only thing a hunter can do is kill monsters. Sangwoo told number 2 to save his son, grab a baseball bat and attack the monster. Go ahead, you dog. Number 2 freed the man from the rubble. He told him to go away. The monster being called a dog felt offended. It blushed and growled. Sangwoo told number 2 to take out his weapon. He pulled out the gem from his person. This was not the time to have many options. He threw the gem to number 2 and told it to eat it. Number 2 obediently swallowed it and immediately transformed into a monster. Sangwoo asked to verify if number 2 was still conscious. Number 2 growled yes. The D-rank monster thought Sangwoo was asking it, so he looked at him with a puzzled look. Sangwoo snapped, "You're not on my side." He looked back at his body. Luckily he was fine. Other than a clone's spike in stats, there didn't seem to be any side effects. The two sides began to fight. Number 2 took the sword he got from the fish last time and slashed. The monster's arm was severed. It screamed in pain. Even more furious, it took the mace and slashed down at number 2. This monster was much slower than the mermaid, so they easily dodged the attack. Sangwoo continued to charge forward with the baseball bat. The monster's arm that was cut off by number 2 quickly grew back. It raised its hand to block Sangwoo's attack and then pushed him away. Sangwoo fell to the ground. He assessed the situation. This monster's skin wasn't very tough. He could easily cut it, but it regenerated too quickly. If that was the case, then dealing damage would be impossible. Sangwoo ordered number 2 to knock the monster down in a few minutes. Number 2 heard the order and cut off the monster's legs, causing it to fall to the ground. Sangwoo took the opportunity to shoot 2 bullets into its eyes. The monster painfully covered its face and screamed. Number 2 took the opportunity to continuously slash at other parts of the monster. By the time his eyes recovered and he could see his surroundings, Sangwoo was already in front of him. He activated his quick attack move, holding the baseball bat and hitting it straight in the face. The monster fell to the ground unconscious. Sangwoo rubbed his hand that had just held the baseball bat. This quick attack was really powerful, and the consequences were also not bad. This monster seems to be a bit stronger than the merman, assuming the merman is strong because it operates in its territory. But this monster is still quite strong without any conditions. Sangwoo stood up, dusted off his clothes and told number 2 to quickly go into the shelter. Their family was very worried. He searched around but couldn't find his phone. It must have fallen while he was fighting. He told number 2 to lend him his phone. Sangwoo laughed and said that number 2 would be thrown out of the shelter with that look. Just then another group of people being chased by monsters ran over. Sangwoo rubbed his nose and thought, damn. Monsters continued to rampage in the city. After a while people from other guilds also arrived. They gathered to defeat the Great Dragon. Wante's Kindness Guild's plane has also arrived. He commanded the army to shoot down the monster. His subordinates reported that the big dragon is starting to leave here. Wante ordered the army to focus on evacuating the survivors first. Many other guilds were also targeting the dragon. They would also be wasting manpower if they did the same. Wante stood on the plane and looked down. There were a few so-called hunters who took the opportunity to throw rocks down the well and rob the unfortunate victims. Wante looked at them with contempt. They were dirty people. The subordinate reported that he had found some survivors 700 meters to the north, and told Wante to go check on the living. Wante activated his equipment. He saw Sangwoo's group fighting against the monsters. He put on his mask and jumped from the plane towards them. On the other side, Sangwoo was struggling to hold on. He planned to go back right after eliminating the monster from before, but there were too many people being chased by monsters. He couldn't just stand by and watch. Sangwoo shouted for the group to return to the basement of the apartment building, behind which the monsters were already surrounding them. Sangwoo ordered number 2 to protect the back while he blocked the front. Sangwoo was exhausted. He couldn't use his quick attack skills anymore because it consumed too much energy. Just then a giant goose emerged from underground. It stuck its beak into the ground and sprayed lava. Lava shot towards the people. Number 2 jumped out in time to shield them, but in return he was seriously injured. Sangwoo leaned on his cane and struggled to stand up. Just then another tiger appeared. Sangwoo knew he was about to go to heaven. He sat down and waited to die. The tiger swung its claws at him. He closed his eyes tightly, and when he opened them, a man had killed the tiger with just one slash. This person is Wante. He asked everyone if they were okay. At the same time in the shelter, Sangwoo's younger sister Jiwoo is arguing with number 3. She insists on going out to save her brother, but number 3 does not agree. You must prioritize your master's orders to protect your family. Sangwoo's parents saw that and told their daughter to stop screaming. Everyone was scared. He had full confidence that Sangwoo would return. It was more dangerous to go out now, and if they went out now, they would likely become an obstacle for Sangwoo. Don't look at things emotionally. Just then, someone called for help from outside the door. Jiwoo was happy. Could it be her brother? Everyone looked through the camera and saw a figure outside calling for help. It could be the person Sangwoo saved just now. Jiwoo went to open the door. She saw someone beside him too. It could be her brother. Jiwoo entered the password. The door slowly opened. Outside the door was a dead body. Behind it were 2 monsters. One was a B-class monster, a screaming firefly, capable of imitating other people's voices. The people inside ran away when they saw the monster. Jiwoo was frozen and couldn't move. Number 3 quickly rushed to block in front of Jiwoo. It intended to poke the bug straight in the eye, but this bug was tough. It pierced through number 3 and hit Jiwoo's stomach standing behind. The girl spat blood and fell down. Number 3 held a gun and shot at the gate control panel. It located the fatal injury and initiated an emergency closure. Number 3 used all his strength to push the bug out the door. Sangwoo meets Wante for the first time, the leader of the Awakening Project. He praised him for being willing to sacrifice himself to save people without running away. Sangwoo was also happy to be praised and couldn't stop smiling. Wante recalled when he rushed down here, he saw Sangwoo's second clone block the attack for the people and disappear. He was still wondering who that person was. Wante asked Sangwoo about his skills. He hesitated whether to tell the truth or not, but just as he was about to speak, the connection with number 3 suddenly disappeared. Sangwoo picked up number 2's sword and ran towards the shelter. His family was in danger, he had to leave now. Wante ordered his subordinates to locate him and bring the survivors to safety. Sangwoo ran with all his might. Under the impact of the sword, his eyes turned red. He activated his sprint skill and ran like he had never run before. The group in the other area was still concentrating their firepower to take down the giant dragon. They had tried everything. Neither slashes nor poison could penetrate its skin, so they decided to work together to take down the dragon. But the Haesong Association's president didn't think so. He came because he heard there was money here, so how could he cooperate? Haesong used his skill. He called out a great fire that burned everything down. On the other side, Sangwoo's parents kept stopping the bleeding for his sister. Tears kept flowing down their faces, and they could only encourage their daughter to try to endure. The bug that had just finished taking down number 3 came back and broke the door open. Jiwoo struggled to call out for her parents to run away. The firefly kept on mumbling some nasty words. Just then Sangwoo also chased after him. Seeing his sister lying unconscious on the ground, he was stunned. Anger flared up, his eyes were bloodshot. Sangwoo screamed and rushed towards the attacking bug, but the bug swiped at him. Sangwoo coughed up blood, seriously injured. The firefly was still fine. It kept sticking out its tongue to provoke. Sangwoo was even more furious than before. He bathed his sword in his blood and continued to attack. When the two sides were about to collide, suddenly someone rushed out to stop Sangwoo's actions, pinning him to the ground. Wante's group arrived in time and were ready to fight. The girl who had just stopped his actions quickly treated Sangwoo's wound, but he was still agitated and wanted to continue fighting. She activated the mana transmission skill to help him calm down. Sangwoo cried out in pain. He said his sister was injured over there, please save her. Wante turned into serious mode. He comforted Sangwoo. You and your brother won't die today, he said, and then he went to fight the monster. In the Hunter Association office, the association president recalled his previous conversation with old man Haesong. The association president decided to evacuate everyone as soon as possible to keep losses as low as possible. Haesong laughed and criticized. They didn't know when the disaster would happen. He said that if the association president planned to evacuate the people within 3 months, everyone would blame the association. All those who lost their families and property will try to gather together and tear this association apart. Haesong started to put pressure on the president. I don't know if his head will still be on his shoulders next month, let alone in 3 months. The association president snapped and asked old man Haesong what he wanted him to do. Haesong told the chairman not to tell the people that a monster would appear, concealing the danger of this invasion. He told the chairman to make the people blame themselves for not evacuating because they were too weak to protect themselves. The association president couldn't believe it. He asked Haesong if he knew how many people could die from this incident. Old Haesong, on the other hand, didn't see it as a problem. He thought it was a good thing. The more people died, the more their hunters would be used. Starting with the D-rank monsters, the army couldn't do anything. In the end, those lowly humans could only defend themselves with their hunters. Haesong smiled slyly. He wasn't asking the chairman to do this, but rather forcing him. So now, the association president has no choice but to turn a blind eye to all the announcements. Sangwoo leisurely ate snacks while his clone was working hard at exercising. He lay on its back and leisurely urged it to hurry up and do push-ups. This is still slow. Sangwoo laughed heartily. This skill was the best. The clone earned money and trained him. He didn't have to do anything and his stats still increased. He didn't have to worry about anything for the rest of his life. After receiving Junmo's message, he stood up and called number 1 to go make money together. Today he took number 1 hunting unicorn rabbits again. Junmo asked where is number 2? He replied number 2 is exercising. Junmo asked him why he didn't practice. If he practiced, he thought he would get much stronger. Sangwoo laughed evasively. He didn't want to practice. Actually, he wasn't serious when he said he wanted to be a hunter. He made enough money catching unicorns, and there were plenty of hunters in the association these days. It wouldn't matter if one person was missing. Junmo said he was just suggesting it. He saw a lot of potential in him but didn't use it. Sangwoo could become the best hunter. Sangwoo didn't think that far, he just needed to be able to take care of himself. Suddenly Junmo's attitude changed completely. He was no longer the Junmo from before. His empty eyes were oozing black fluid. He slashed, seriously injuring Sangwoo's hand. I don't know when the surrounding air changed to a red color. Sangwoo was surrounded by a group of zombies. It was his parents who were scolding him and his little sister who kept calling for help. Sangwoo screamed and sat up, breathing heavily. It turned out that just now was just a dream. Wante stood by the bed and told him not to move too much since he just woke up. Sangwoo took a breath and hugged his arms, telling himself he was fine. Wante reminded him to be careful. He was in bad shape. The wound was quite deep but he was still lucky. Sangwoo thanked Wante for saving him not once but twice. Wante had something else to say but he had to leave it for later. Sangwoo's parents were here now. They were very worried. Seeing him awake, they felt relieved. They hurriedly asked if he was okay. The doctor reviewed his medical report and said his surgery was a success. They'll keep him in for observation. But with his recovery rate this fast, he should be able to go home in a month. Sangwoo asked about the gate. It had been open for 4 days. The high-level large monsters had been dealt with but the low-level ones had escaped in large numbers. Sangwoo felt a headache coming on. He couldn't remember anything after he passed out. But then he was startled and hurriedly asked about his sister. His parents and the doctor bowed their heads in silence. People took him to see his sister. The doctor treated her belly but she had the mana virus. Everyone is infected by monsters that come out of the space gate. It is a virus that absorbs mana and life force of the host. Most of the time, there is no serious problem. Each person has different attributes. If it is not compatible with this virus, the virus will die without causing any harm. But there are rare cases. The host's mana is compatible with the virus and the virus absorbs so much mana and vitality that it cannot wake up. Sangwoo trembled and asked if there was any way to cure it. The doctor said that with current technology, there was no way. The virus had already synchronized with the host's mana, and even healing magic would be useless. So the only way left was to continue feeding him mana and maintaining his nutrition. There is still a very small chance if you get help from someone who is an S-rank hunter with a blessing spell or an item like a transformed hawthorn or a divine medicine from the other side of the gate. Like those things are extremely rare and extremely expensive. Sangwoo knew that. He stared blankly through the glass window, saying nothing, his hand tightly gripping the IV. He blamed himself if he hadn't turned back to save the person. If you prioritized protecting your family first, if you were a little stronger, you would have been able to save everyone and your sister. Sangwoo squeezed even harder, breaking the IV rod, causing the wound on his shoulder to bleed. The doctor and others rushed to stop him and give him first aid. Sangwoo didn't care about his wound. His tears fell down. If only he tried a little harder, this wouldn't have happened. Sangwoo was taken back to the room. He sat blankly on the bed. The door suddenly opened. The person who came was Haeyeon. She knew he was in the hospital so she came to visit. Sangwoo asked if her family was okay. He was quite worried because her house was near a dangerous place but luckily her family was fine, only the house was a little damaged. Haeyeon's father contacted Sangwoo's parents because he couldn't reach him, so he found out he was here. Sangwoo remembered that he lost his phone. He asked Haeyeon why she called him teacher instead of brother. Haeyeon was confused and corrected her form of address. She told him to get well soon so he could continue teaching her. Sangwoo sighed and told her that he would not continue teaching her. 2 weeks later, Sangwoo's wounds had healed completely, surprising even the doctor. He changed and prepared to be discharged from the hospital. Sangwoo recalled the conversation he had with Haeyeon the day before. He told Haeyeon everything about his current situation. He didn't know what else to say other than to apologize to her. Haeyeon thanked him for everything. She realized it seemed like Sangwoo wouldn't contact her anymore. She forced a smile and told Sangwoo that he would regret losing a beautiful student like her. She would go to college with everything he taught her. She said that she would find a boyfriend when she went to college. Sangwoo shouldn't regret it then. Haeyeon smiled beautifully and left. Sangwoo knew Haeyeon's feelings but he didn't have time to regret now. Sangwoo left the hospital, looked up information about Wante, and took a taxi to the kindness building. Sangwoo walked inside and the receptionist enthusiastically asked him what he needed. Sangwoo said he was here to meet the President Park Wante. He didn't have an appointment so the receptionist couldn't let him in. Just then a tall bearded man came up and asked him if he was Sangwoo. He is the high-ranking commander of the guild. He invited you upstairs. Wante is waiting for you. Sangwoo was escorted all the way to Wante's office. He came here to thank him for everything he had done for him. He felt extremely grateful that he had rescued his family and given him first aid in that situation. He was also very curious why Wante would go to such lengths for him. He heard from the hospital that it was Wante who provided his family with private rooms, even temporary accommodation for his parents and his sister's expenses. Sangwoo asked if those things were related to what he was about to hear from Wante. Wante clenched his fists. He said he had a younger sister too, but she was missing along with his bandmates. Maybe that was why he saw himself in Sangwoo. It's true that his personal emotions were in turmoil but he didn't do it to make Sangwoo feel grateful and force him to repay him. Sangwoo asked why Wante wanted to see him as soon as he felt better. He wanted to ask about his abilities. He asked if his clone could do anything, right? Even the man who saved the other villagers was just a clone, right? Sangwoo didn't intend to hide it. He told Wante that it was his skill. Wante clenched his fists. He got straight to the point. He needed his strength. He begged him to save the Kindness Guild's first squad just like how he saved the other survivors without expecting anything in return. Wante didn't ask Sangwoo for help to repay him. He knew that the only person who had a chance to save his sister and the other members of Team 1 was him. Wante bowed his head and begged him sincerely. Sangwoo thought for a moment. Wante had saved his family once. Now it was his turn to do the opposite. Wante happily thanked him profusely. Sangwoo was taken to the Kindness training ground. Wante said he could use his skills as he pleased. The furniture here was quite sturdy. Sangwoo wondered why they didn't prepare for the rescue right away. Wante said there were two reasons for doing this before the rescue. First, it was true that the faster they did it, the better their chances of success. However, it was also not like they didn't have a lot of time. Thanks to Wante's sister's abilities, Team 1 was able to hold out for quite a while. They had at least 8 months before they could hold out. Secondly, because of the dungeon level. Although it was the elite team of the Kindness Guild with overall combat ability of rank B, but Team 1 had suffered a lot of damage and failed to escape that dungeon, so he thought that the level of that dungeon must be close to rank A. With Sangwoo's current level, he was not qualified to enter it. Sangwoo suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Wante suddenly became serious. He said people would reveal unbelievable powers when they were about to die. The power released momentarily in a critical situation is enough to rupture muscles or break bones. Of course, it is also proportional to the outbreak of stats. What Sangwoo lacked right now was stats. Up until now he had overcome obstacles through his combat senses, but in this training, his combat senses would reach their limits. Wante grabbed the wooden sword and charged at Sangwoo. Sangwoo texted Junmo telling him not to worry about him. He asked for a break from hunting for a while. Junmo bit his nails nervously waiting for Sangwoo to arrive. When Sangwoo arrived, Junmo almost didn't recognize him. He looked like a pig's head. Sangwoo told Junmo the whole story. He panicked and asked if he was okay. Sangwoo said he was fine. Mana characteristics were different for everyone, even within the family, so he was fine. Junmo also knew that he had accepted a mission from Kindness. He was quite surprised that he suddenly couldn't contact him, but he didn't expect so many things to happen. He said he was using number 2's phone, and told Junmo to change number 2's contact name to him. Junmo asked if he had backed up his contacts, and what about his friends and other people's phone numbers. But Sangwoo decided not to, thinking it might be better to just leave it as it was. Junmo couldn't understand Sangwoo's actions. He asked about the injuries on his face. Sangwoo said it was because of training. Junmo stood up. He couldn't believe they made Sangwoo like this. He would report this to the association room. Sangwoo stopped him, saying that Wante's sister was locked in the dungeon. He was the one who had to be more reckless than anyone else. He understood that feeling too. Sangwoo called out his clone, told it to get dressed and attack Wante again. He might lose today, but tomorrow was uncertain. The next day, Sangwoo changed his strategy, using many to fight few. He called number 1 to rush up and fight together, but in the end, both the original and the clone were beaten to a pulp. The next day, Sangwoo called for number 2 to fight, 3 against 1, either blind or lame. The outcome of all 3 was not much different from the day before. Another day, he decided to call all 3 clones to fight with him. Then all 4 dragged each other back. Sangwoo returned to where Junmo was sitting, and at this point he had to admit that Wante was too strong. The clones were very good at copying movements, so it wasn't like he didn't learn anything, but the gap between the two was too great. He needed to think of a way to fill that gap. Sangwoo came up with another idea. He presented it to Junmo to see if it was okay. Junmo was worried if it was safe. Sangwoo was sure it was no problem. The next day Sangwoo came again. This time all 3 clones transformed into monster forms. The day before, he had Junmo quickly buy a bunch of gems for his clones to bite, so today their stats had skyrocketed. Sangwoo drew his sword. He was determined to fight with all his might today. Wante still let him hold only a stick to fight. The clones rushed forward. Their abilities were usually lower than the original, but now they were on par. The clones have become stronger due to the enhancement, but in return one of their biggest drawbacks is that their accuracy has been greatly reduced. Sangwoo slashed with his sword. Wante easily dodged. Another clone pointed a gun at his head and pulled the trigger. But without mana bullets, these bullets have no effect on Wante. He grabbed Sangwoo's wrist and gave him a painful blow with his stick. The other 3 clones attacked at the same time, but Wante easily blocked them all. He held the wooden sword, advising Sangwoo to pour mana into the sword and hand and mix them as if they were one. If you master this move, just a tree branch is enough to cut monsters. Sangwoo struggled to get up. He was determined not to give up. He gritted his teeth and continued to slash with his sword, but Wante easily blocked it with one move. He said you've gotten stronger but still not enough to defeat him. Wante went one-on-one. Just a wooden sword was enough to take down Sangwoo and his clones. With Sangwoo's level, he couldn't consider him a C-rank hunter. Sangwoo was beaten until his nose bled, but he still continued to attack. Even though all the clones were defeated, he had great determination and could not stop at C-rank. Sangwoo turned to call his clones. He started playing tricks again, telling them to look at Wante's face. High nose, sharp chin, just like a gem. He shouted for them to quickly eat the captain. Whoever bites him first wins. Immediately, the clones were injected with chicken blood. They rushed forward together, but each and every one was knocked away by Wante. Actually, Sangwoo wanting to become stronger wasn't just Wante's request. Ever since he opened his eyes in the hospital, he felt something. The feeling of helplessness when having to entrust the safety of your family to others in times of danger. He hated his own weakness, the feeling of discouragement when the results did not match his efforts. He never wanted to feel that feeling again. Sangwoo's blood was surging. He held his sword in both hands and continued to attack. He had no intention of stopping. 6 months later, at the Sinziol Dong Station hunting ground, a group of thugs bullied another group of people, beating them until their noses were bleeding. The girl on the weaker side shouted and questioned the others why they did that. They had official hunting permits. The leader snapped at them to shut up. They were from the Silver Moon Guild, and they were currently using this platform as a hunting ground. If they wanted to hunt, they should go somewhere else. Several people guarding the nearby hunting ground saw the dispute but did not intervene, turning their heads away as if they did not see anything. The leader of the Silver Moon gang narrowed his eyes and glanced at the girl, then suddenly changed his mind and let them join the hunting ground together. His juniors kept praising him for being kind and compassionate, and they laughed out loud. The weaker team knew they were playing dirty but had no choice but to hold back. Suddenly from afar, a young man wearing a hooded cloak walked straight into the hunting grounds. The gatekeeper tried to stop him from entering his bruised face, but the hooded man didn't understand. He had paid to enter. Why wasn't he allowed in? The Silver Moon gang member saw that he seemed to be a rude person. He cracked his knuckles and without hesitation, arrogantly tried to punch the hatted man straight in the face. But before he could even punch, the hooded man caught him. He lifted his leg and kicked the big guy in the stomach, causing him to fall to the ground and hold his stomach. The hooded man realized that his actions were a bit too much and lowered his voice to apologize. He thought the other man was going to hit him, so he didn't know what to do other than defend himself. He was a little startled and hit him. The man took off his hood. It was Sangwoo. He heard that there was a Silver Moon Guild, but he didn't care. He looked at the man who was still blushing and screaming in pain on the ground. He raised his foot and kicked him on the head. What the hell does this guy have to do with your guild hunting here? The big guy lay on the ground drooling, unable to say anything but utter 3 words, "You bastard." The entire Silver Moon Guild was furious to see this brat dare to look down on their guild. They surrounded Sangwoo. "You boasted about being a D-rank hunter, so don't expect to be able to resist when you're alone." "But I'm not alone, I have several of them." Now the one surrounded is that pot-bellied guy. On this side, Park Wante came to see Junmo. He came to get general information about Sangwoo. Junmo brought it out and said, "Like I said before, you don't need to take a picture or hand it over to me." He said he just wanted to check it out. Wante read the information sheet pensively. He couldn't believe Sangwoo could increase his stats this much in just 6 months. Junmo affirmed, "Yes, it feels like he has become a completely different person recently." After that accident, Sangwoo began to obsess over hunting and experiences. Junmo wondered if these stats were enough for him to carry out his plan. Needless to say, Wante had other plans if he failed, so there was no need to worry. But looking at these series of numbers, it's a terrifying growth rate. Let's start with Team 1's rescue mission first. Wante was very curious. Sangwoo had already surpassed D rank and was almost A rank. He would definitely reach a high level one day. The clone skill made the user stronger than the stats indicated. He didn't know how strong he was. Back to the thugs who were being beaten to a pulp. They were being beaten continuously, not knowing what the hell was happening before their eyes. The gatekeeper asked him to stop. He thought Sangwoo was going too far. "You stared at him. You should have said that when the hunter was beaten, not now." He did nothing as they drew their swords. "I don't blame you, but be smart and go back to the security gate." He then ordered all his clones to destroy all the phones so they could not contact him. The 3 ignorant men stood silently in the midst of the hurried flow of life. In the hunting ground of Sinziol Dong Station, this uncle was taking the opportunity to steal some things from the hunting ground. He was holding a red stone in his hand. As soon as he picked it up, it was as if an electric current ran through his body. This difficulty made him so angry that he threw the piece of rock away. Hearing the noise, he guessed that someone was coming, so he quickly ran away. Seeing Sangwoo coming, he started acting shy and endearing. "You're here? I need more time to finish." Sangwoo was like, "Who is this guy?" He suddenly realized it was the unicorn rabbit. Long time no see. He wondered how he got in here. The Silver Moon Guild was definitely guarding the entrance. He moved closer and said, "I was wanting to ask you that. You're not strong, and this is a D-rank dungeon, so what are you doing here?" Looking at this cunning appearance, it doesn't seem like he's hunting. Looking at this appearance, it seems that the Silver Moon Guild is locking him up here. Sangwoo pulled out the photo of the D-rank hunters who had just been stripped to show off. "I don't want comfort or anything, I just want to know what's going on. 1 is why he is locked here, 2 is to join the bikini hunters." The old man struggled with his thoughts, and finally had to say it. D-rank monsters would drop treasures after death. Not always, these treasures stay in their bodies for a long time even after death. They often fight in dungeons. Sangwoo started to imagine, 2 monsters fight, 1 loses and drops a treasure. After that, it calls a new one to continue fighting, then another one drops, and so on continuously. So the treasures piled up in the dungeon. For D-rank hunters, these treasures were random items that weren't worth picking up. So they gathered low-rank hunters and locked them up here until there were enough. The reason they are in this situation is because they owe the association or were sold to the association. Most of them were debtors or novice hunters. If they encountered a monster, even if they died in the dungeon, it would be the same as if the monster died in the dungeon. Looking at the scene before his eyes, Sangwoo never expected to witness this with his own eyes. He just firmly said, "Go," making the uncle startled. "Go before I change my mind." Oh, this is so emotional. I'm about to cry. This Brad turned out to be a good guy. I thought I met a noble person, but he asked for a bag of treasures instead. What are you so emotional about? Our relationship isn't that good. Hee hee. This guy picked up a lot. When the opportunity came, he picked it up immediately. He threw it all to number one and ate it. Number one ate it up. Free stuff was really good. Now they started collecting treasures. He would make good use of them. Over here a young girl is being chased by a monster. I bet you can't catch her, otherwise she'll be a dog. This ferocious monster was the C-rank monster Abomination. She had never heard of a C-rank monster appearing here. This girl is Kim Yu-Hyeon, a hired hand of the Silver Moon Guild. Yu-Hyeon was chased away and fell flat on the ground. She couldn't bear to die in a place like this. But her fate was not over yet, so when she met Sangwoo, he gently picked Yu-Hyeon up and saved her life. Yu-Hyeon was speechless. Someone, the one who saved his life. Moreover, he didn't have any precious gems. Why didn't he collect some? Yu-Hyeon said he threw those things away a long time ago. Even though the monster was about to charge, Sangwoo was calm. He threw them away. Also, he said something about the Haesong Guild. Was it the Silver Moon Guild that sent him? The white monster was suddenly attacked by the red monster. Regardless of what was happening around him, Sangwoo just wanted to ask what was going on with the Haesong group. Yu-Hyeon said nothing and intended to run away. But where could she run to? How can you just act like that when the monsters are surrounding us? Sangwoo just said not to mind them, because the clones behind would clean up. Looking at the people in front of him, Yu-Hyeon couldn't help but wonder, were they a team or was he a summoner? Who are these guys really? Safe, right? Too safe. But it's not very safe, brother. The red monster, Sangwoo's number one, was also beaten to a pulp. It's true that the face doesn't look reputable at all. What the hell is safe? Who would have thought that number one would lose after eating such a basket of treasures? In this situation the only way to survive is to run away. But this young man was still very calm. Wait here a bit, I have already fed them a lot of expensive things. Yu-Hyeon was about to speak but was interrupted by Sangwoo. Shut your mouth, I need to concentrate. This is it, this monster's time has come. Sangwoo rushed to deal with one. The monsters then continued to attack continuously. He needed to take them down as quickly as possible. Sangwoo attacked crazily. This power surprised Yu-Hyeon. He was too strong. Staring at the monster made his eyes red and bloodshot. Sangwoo told himself to calm down. In a moment of distraction, it attacked from behind. Luckily the clones blocked it. He turned back, drew his sword and cut this disgusting monster in half, thus completely destroying it. Damn, I'm going to be disgusted every time I use this sword again. After turning back, he saw Yu-Hyeon standing there with her mouth open in surprise. Did he defeat that monster? Oh, he still hasn't run away? What's wrong, big brother? He was the one who told people not to run away and to stand still and not move. I just hoped, but I didn't expect you to actually do it. Is that so cool? I forgot number one was lying there groaning in pain. He's fine, he's going to heaven, but strangely enough, he should have recovered by now. Yu-Hyeon explained, that monster's bone sword has a corrosive curse on it. If we don't have someone to heal us, we'll die. As expected of the main character, lucky as hell, he almost got hit by one of its swords. But in bad luck there is bad luck. Even though they eat a bunch of gems, they only know how to take the hit instead of dodging. Yu-Hyeon looked at the red guy and didn't think he was a person. She even thought he was a giant wearing a hat. After hearing Sangwoo say he was a summoner, Yu-Hyeon struggled mentally and decided to give him a potion. Here, if you give him this, he might live a little longer. But if anything happens, don't blame me. What kind of fake medicine is this? What kind of longevity medicine has a skull on it? Well, there was no other choice at this point, so he poured the medicine into number one's mouth. Body number one gave off a foul smell, the wound gradually healing. Sangwoo exclaimed, the effect is amazing. What kind of medicine is this? Number one jumped up as if nothing had happened. Sangwoo was overjoyed, he looked so fine. Uin then started to speak. Only now, it has the side effect of slowly draining his vitality. My ability is that of a poisoner. A little about the poisoner. Level 5, creates poisons. The number of recipes increases based on the level. The proficiency of each recipe can be increased. Use poison to convert life energy to restore injured parts. The higher the proficiency, the less life energy is consumed. With the regeneration effect, the side effects slowly drain the user's vitality. Increase strength by using poison to stimulate the body. So that means number one will eventually die after running out of life force. Well, it's going to die anyway. It's better to do this than to die already. Sangwoo turned to tell number one to go hunting before he disappeared. He immediately teleported, so Sangwoo would have to summon him again. Yu-Hyeon has already told us all about her abilities. She asked Sangwoo to tell her about his abilities too. Who are you? You have monsters like pets and each one is extremely strong. You even defeated that monster. I've never heard of anyone like you among the B-rank hunters in the country. Of course he couldn't hear it because he was an E-rank hunter. Yu-Hyeon didn't believe it. How could an E-rank be in a C-rank dungeon, and yet he could hunt so easily in this dungeon? Sangwoo didn't answer, just happily turned back and asked, why are you talking as if I'm your friend? At the YOLO Guild warehouse, many crates of treasures were transported. Guild leader Han Miho is actively collecting it. This three-headed girl is the guild manager Kim So-na. She doesn't understand why Miho is collecting these things. What did she do before? She was just helping Mr. Wante. He said he would pay a high price for them. So-na looked at the full boxes. Why did he need so many? Did he have many pets? Miho heard that there was someone named Jung Sangwoo. He needed these gems. Turning back to Sangwoo, he saw her expression. He thought to himself, this guy is so sensitive about these things. What should I do? What if he's a bad guy? Yoo-hyun didn't understand why he asked that. He could talk to her like that too. It was completely fine. Sangwoo thought this guy was crazy. He slowly stood up. Actually, that wasn't the question I was most curious to know. Why did you mention Haesong when you ran away? I wanted to ask you something. Wante asked in a questioning tone. Introducing himself as a hunter but not knowing about these things was confusing. Sangwoo scratched his head and hands in embarrassment. Well, since he had just received his hunter license not long ago, he didn't know much about the issues between guilds. Yoo-hyun explained to the new hunter that the Silvermoon Guild was sort of a subordinate guild to the Haesong Guild. They pretended to know nothing, but Silvermoon did all the dirty work for Haesong. I was pretty sure that many of the people who were captured here were also because of the Haesong Guild. Sangwoo asked who brought her here. When I heard this question, a memory from my childhood suddenly came back. Yoo-hyun said fearfully, that was information he didn't need to know. Then she blamed herself for telling this guy all her skills. Sangwoo was like, what the hell did this girl eat? Well, I have the information I need, so goodbye. Yeah, aren't you done? What, it's just the beginning. Sangwoo said she could go. There was no one at the gate, and those Silvermoon bastards were gone too. Before leaving, he didn't forget to praise her skills as quite good. My skills? Are you teasing me? You'll die if you drink even a little bit. But Sangwoo didn't care about the side effects just now. He handed Yoo-hyun the dirty business card and said, if you don't have a place to work or if you're afraid of retaliation from the Haesong Society, just call me at the number on the business card. It also has my address and the agents here hate the Haesong Society. I'm leaving now. Number 5 will escort this girl out of the gate. Sangwoo started hunting monsters one by one. He thought Yoo-hyun's skills would be useful for his clones. Should he try to persuade her further? Number 1 was fighting hard when he suddenly coughed up blood and fell flat on his back. This is a side effect of the drug. Sangwoo thought he could endure it thanks to his regeneration skill. Well, it was a good job. He continued to summon it, but it was this eye-catching image again. Put on your clothes and cover the bird, then get back to hunting. Lurking behind were a group of D-rank hunters. Has he left yet? Yes, he has. They couldn't believe their eyes. They thought he was a human, but that monster was really scary. Then 2 naked guys stood there talking to each other. I thought he was dead, but he came back to life, which was really scary. I wondered what his skills were. And judging by the way he talked, it seemed like there were still a few people like him. Are we in danger? Damn, if we were at least equipped. Equipment is still going to get beat to a pulp, bro. 2 parted hair wondered why they came back, and the jade pickers also ran away. 3 pointed hair groped the wall, searching for anything unusual. This idiot, don't you know where this is? The reason we are limited to hunting in this area, we should at least check out what this place is. Luckily, he hadn't found this place yet. Behind this wall was a mysterious room. This place seemed to be a manufacturing workshop. I wonder what they are building here. Because the materials can be obtained right from the hunting grounds and the possibility of someone finding this place is very low. Besides, who would think of investigating this hunting ground? These things are not opium and are worth much more than opium. These are definitely refined gems. Their abilities are 100 times better than normal gems, and just one of them will increase our stats by 0.5 points. But the side effect is becoming a monster that even the most loyal beast can lose control of. That's why the Hunter Association banned this thing. The Bangs thought the effect was not worth it. What good would it be to increase stats when you turned into a monster? Back then, not enough people were willing to take that risk. That was why it was so cheap back then. But recently, things had changed the value of this thing completely. It's because of a project called GMP. There's a place where they re-engineer this stuff so they can create a product that can be used on humans. Because of this GMP project, Tron Company bought gems like crazy. But because the production of this thing is illegal, the value of this thing increased like a kite. No one thought this trash could make money. They could make millions with this stuff. 3 pointed hair thought that with some kids, they could be beaten in one go. But if he brought this back, it would be different. He would leave it here and come back tomorrow. 2 pointed hair didn't understand why he left it here and didn't take it with him. How are you going to stop those bastards if they catch me holding this? Do you even use your brain? Can't you just bring a little? Look at the interface of these two. Wearing only underwear is too attention-grabbing. They carefully closed the secret door. Yoo-hyun here has seen it all, finally found it. She angrily yelled at number 5 to go back, just bring it here. Number 5's fragile and weak heart was scolded and didn't dare to fight back, quietly turning back. She decided to stay in this hunting ground. Luckily, those damn Silvermoon gang led her there. But I don't understand why they are naked like that. So she successfully found a pile of crystals in that room, quite a lot. She pulled out her big bag, but it looked heavy. She wondered if she would attract attention if she carried it. On this side, number 5 was giving everyone directions to quickly exit the gate. This was her chance to blend in with their crowd. Number 5 saw that Yoo-hyun had left safely, so the mission was completed, thank goodness. So Yin successfully survived the gate with the stolen crystal gems. She ran without looking back for a second. Silvermoon gang, you bastards. Sangwoo also thought that everyone had escaped and was safe, the monsters had been cleared out, and most importantly, the bag was full of gems. I'm excited, I've been wondering where the gems are lately to buy, these are the best. Number 1 looked at the jade bag and his stomach growled, his mouth watered like rain, should he eat it all? Oh no, if you turn into a monster, everyone will be scared. The clone skill is on cooldown, so let's think about it tomorrow. At this time, Sangwoo also received a message from Kong Junmo asking him to come to the Kindness Guild tomorrow, they would explain the mission. The next day, the other two guys came back dressed and all, but the pile of crystals was nowhere to be found. He was furious because tomorrow was the deadline. The 3-inch hair man got angry and turned to strangle the gatekeeper. You bastard, if you're paid to do this, then do your job carefully. Why did you let someone else in here? The gatekeeper is really in trouble. Who can stop other hunters when they bought tickets to enter? Besides, the people who escaped were the ones he had locked up. Hearing this, he dropped the soldier in a daze. Why those bastards? Just thinking about those 3 guys' faces scared the hell out of him. How could he get it back from them? Yu-hyun still couldn't believe that they had brought her to a dungeon for C-rank hunters when she escaped. She would have died if it weren't for Sangwoo's help, at least she would have brought back a bag of loot. The Silvermoon Guild might get suspicious if she sold them right away, so Yin decided to hide them for now to pass the sensitive time. Suddenly Sangwoo's business card fell out. Remembering what he said, she was angry, he doesn't know anything. You fucking bastard, you think I'll go there if you flatter me? At Odin Tower, level 5 dungeon. Undiscovered. It is known that the strongest hunter of the first generation, Baek Wan, found this place and challenged it. But then they lost contact with him immediately and he never returned. Soon after, countless hunters challenged it, but all of them failed even in passing through the lowest floors. There is only one exception for translator Jory Lucas. And that's where the Kindness Guild's first team is stuck, including Wante's younger sister who is the first team captain. Odin's Tower is a dungeon with a special structure, only entrance and no exit. The only thing that connects to the outside world is mana. The only way to contact them is to use telepathy. Because of that, the ways to escape are very limited. Sangwoo has to complete the dungeon or escape using the teleportation skill. That's why his cloning skill is so important. Other hunters can't escape if something happens in the dungeon. That was why he needed Sangwoo. He wondered, then there was no way for Team 1 other than to escape on their own using their own strength? Their side has equipped Team Number 1 with a way to escape, but they still haven't escaped. He sighed, I'll tell you a story, about what happened in Odin Tower, about how everything went off the rails. Wante continued, the story happened 5 years before the great disaster in 2005. My sister awakened to her abilities in the dark hours not long after the disaster ended. At that time, Park Wante was only 16 years old and Park Yuna was 9 years old. He was busy fighting the monster. His little sister shyly gave him the cake package. At this time, Wante also discovered that his sister had the ability to create a dimension like a storage bag. The little girl also did not know how, it suddenly appeared, she could contain a lot of things in it. Wante patted Yuna's head, you have a very good skill, this is a very useful skill Yuna. Now go home and sleep, you must be tired. So the two brothers carried each other across the sea of disaster. Together they experienced many dangerous situations thanks to those abilities when they were young. They can put items, even people, into that extra dimension. Wante thought it would be better if the two of them went to clear a dungeon together. Until the two of them grew up, Yuna became the captain of the Kindness Guild's first squad. The little girl still playfully bullied her brother. The staff who witnessed it were also stunned when they saw the president being beaten. The two brothers were having a small disagreement. Wante objected to going to Odin Tower without a teleportation user in the team. Yuna was annoyed, there it is again, so why are we buying teleportation scrolls? There are less than 100 teleportation users in the world, we don't even have one right now. How do you think we can recruit one right away? If not now, then never. Team 1 is in top shape and we have your skills. This is the only chance. Wante was still hesitant, don't you trust me with this mission? So he gritted his teeth and suppressed his anger. Even if Team 1 left, he still wasn't sure if they would clear that dungeon. At that time, I really didn't know who was the real captain. Yuna promised him she would come back if she encountered danger. She knew that it would be terrible to leave her family behind and not return. Of course it's not just a teleportation scroll to escape. I also keep a bunch of food and medicine with me. She said and handed it over to reassure him. Now that he thought about it, he regretted his decision to let his sister go. He shouldn't have been persuaded by such a reason. He shouldn't have even felt relieved just because of something like emergency supplies when his sister went. So Yuna and Team 1 set off. He regretted not stopping them at that moment. Then he was stunned like a ghost. He thought they wouldn't do it. They had been preparing for it for years. You're overprotecting the captain. Who else but their president can trust them? These words convinced Wante. Since the person was already gone, he might as well try to trust her. This was also the time when he was preparing to host a program for awakened people. That competition was also the one Sangwoo participated in. Perhaps because he was a bit overweight at that time, no one recognized him. The guild also used magic scrolls to contact Team 1. They brought 10 with them and would report back weekly. Because they couldn't go in, a team from the guild also stayed outside the entrance to Odin Tower to contact Yuna. The first time he reported, there was no problem. Then the second, third time, Everything went smoothly, so Wante quickly started to calm down. Then the problem happened after a month. That day was the day to receive the report from Team 1. As planned, they would travel 40 kilometers today. They started tearing up the contact paper, having traveled 700 meters after passing the end of the first floor. An unknown monster ambushed Team 1. Most of the team members were fighting the monster. By the time the damage report was received, the signal was so jammed that the employee's head felt like it was about to explode. They tore multiple scrolls at once, causing a disruption in the transmission. At that moment, Wante turned around and saw the most horrible sight. A bloody person stepped out from the teleportation circle. Because of his hesitation in saving them at that time, the result of his lack of responsibility was covered up by the word trust. Everything seemed to collapse before Wante's eyes. He rushed to check on Seong Tae's condition and called the rescue team. The portal begins to crack. Telepathy is still possible for now. The guild asked the rescue team to send a team to check outside the tower in the afternoon and never enter the tower unless you are sure you can do it. Everyone was trying to give Seong Tae first aid. He could only say sorry at this moment. We failed. The monster tore all the scrolls. We had never seen such a monster in the report. He is bleeding profusely. He needs to be taken to hospital immediately. Wante sat there in a daze. The telepathy was still connected. The staff would repeat what they wanted to say. It was Yuna's voice. The battle is over. Sorry, I think the mission failed. I thought we could do it. I can wait here. Don't worry, I'll come back no matter what. Wante trembled as he listened to his sister's last words. After that, they hired many hunters but none of them accepted. Everyone thought this was a crazy idea. Odin's Tower? Are you crazy? If we can get in through the scroll, how do you explain your mission team being trapped inside? Sorry, but my baby can't be 5 kilometers away from me and of course I don't want to go alone. Then the portal disaster happened and Wante met Sangwoo. That's why he wanted Sangwoo to meet the required figures. Because at least he had the ability to get to where the team was stuck. Sangwoo always did everything within his ability very well. It's time for the rescue mission. The Kindness Guild will escort you to the entrance of Odin Tower. They will start tomorrow at Odin Tower. Over here, the group of people who lost the crystal are being beaten to a pulp. This crazy guy is the leader of the Silvermoon Guild, Huchol. He screamed helplessly, "You bastards. I told you to go in there and hunt. What's so hard about that? I sent a bunch of D-rank bastards and asked you to guard the entrance. But what the hell did you all do? What do you want me to do now?" After cursing his underlings, he calmed down and asked who the brat was that took his crystal jade. They all covered their faces. There was one but his name was not on the list of D-rank hunters and above. He was even crazier at the thought of them being defeated by an E-rank hunter. He continued to beat the other guy angrily. "You think we are the only ones producing refined jade? If we don't collect enough money to give to Haesong Association, do you think they will wait happily? It's all over if they replace us with another supplier. I won't say anything more. Find that brat and bring him here to me." Everyone said, "Understood." But looking at these people, he could tell that they would be beaten up like the previous ones. They were really useless. What a headache. The urgent matter now is where to get those gems. A dangerous-looking guy was sitting nearby. The vice leader of the guild, Kong Chunsung. He's excited about this. We'll find out who he is if we beat up a few of them. I don't know why they're wasting their time on this. It seems like he has some plan. The next day, at the GM organization, Sangwoo felt that Wante wasn't lying because there were some important issues that he didn't mention. The reason they tried to destroy Odin Tower. Sangwoo didn't know anything about the hunter industry but he knew about Odin Tower. Odin Tower was conquered in 2012. According to the statement, that year the Odin Tower was completely empty. There is only one monster left with no treasure or items. Do not enter Odin's Tower to sacrifice yourself in vain. After that, the hunters stopped entering or paying any attention to it. Thus, it became an abandoned dungeon. But Wante did not explain why his sister's mission team was so determined to enter it. However, Sangwoo didn't need Junmo to reconsider this matter. His mission was to rescue them, not to clear the dungeon. So he would just focus on the mission now. Suddenly Sangwoo caught sight of Yin sleeping in a corner. Junmo wondered who that was? "Oh, I met her at the hunting ground. I told her to come here if she didn't have a job." Although he didn't expect to see her like this at the entrance. Junmo came to wake up someone's daughter with a face like a bastard. Startled the girl awake. "Before we say hello, our stomachs say hello first. Let's go eat something first." So they went together to the restaurant in front of the building. She ate like a hungry tiger. Sangwoo had saved his number in her phone. "Hey, you came here like this, so you came to work for JM organization, right?" Yin said yes. Junmo asked about her skills, appraised a few items and made medicine. But Sangwoo said he would slowly die after drinking it. "That's great, bro. You're handsome but you're so rude." Hyun grabbed this rude guy's hair and ruined his newly gelled hair. There are drugs that don't kill people. Although they were useless, they were very useful. Sangwoo wanted to make use of these skills of hers. He even planned to use it for the clone. Junmo started taking out a pen and paper to take notes, bothering her to buy some tools to make medicine. "I will also provide some money." Sangwoo stood up and went ahead because he had to go to the dungeon. Yin thought this guy was going hunting again. But this time it was different. This time his goal wasn't hunting. She threw him 2 potions. She had made them before, one for strength and one for mana. However, they also have side effects. Strength potions will melt muscles and mana potions will make the body explode. Interesting, so Sangwoo and his clones set off. First, promise them to have a meal when you return. Only when your spirits are high can you work effectively. That night, So-Na was going to the YOLO Guild warehouse. The guild master wanted her to move all the gems and jewels to the Kindness Guild. She suddenly discovered that the security guards had been attacked, and the room also showed signs of being broken into. So-Na doesn't know who would dare steal the treasure of the YOLO Guild. She activated her thief skill and searched for these thieves. After seeing them lurking in there, she immediately charged in. She was attacked as soon as she stepped in. She was sure that there were only people in the warehouse, so she charged straight in. So who was this guy? Yes, he was the deputy leader of Silvermoon. He said smugly, "We were hiding so well, only an idiot would answer. Sorry, but we really need this treasure." So they took all the treasure in the warehouse and then burned down the warehouse. This treasure heist is complete. Next is to find out who stole the precious crystals. On this side, Sangwoo and his clones landed in Iceland. This was the first time he had set foot in another country. Together they go to Valhalla portal, which connects to the main gate of Odin's Tower. Sangwoo was greeted by two cool security guards. "You are Jung Sangwoo, right? Mr. Park Wante is waiting for you at the entrance. You can go see him now." This majestic place is the entrance to Odin's Tower. A bottomless abyss and endless space beyond. This place doesn't look like a tower at all. Besides, it's very cold here, it's best to return to the guild's barracks. At this time, Wante also received information that the YOLO Guild's storage had been robbed clean. It seemed like they had planned it very carefully. The treasures were all gone, leaving nothing behind. What a bunch of brats, they probably didn't know what kind of person Han Miho was. Seeing Sangwoo, the two were as happy as seeing their mother coming home from the market. Finally, he came. Finally, this day had come. It had been a while since they had seen each other, but they missed him to death. They prepared a coat for him because it was quite cold here. The clones also quickly put on new clothes. Wante started the mission. The mutation disappeared at a location about 40 kilometers from the entrance. The distance wasn't as far as Sangwoo had expected. He wondered if it was too short for them to only be able to travel this distance in a month. But because of that, the food problem would be fine, so they should take it slow. Wante gave him 3 teleportation scrolls, which were prepared in case of emergency. He thought it would be a good idea to give one to each clone. These are important, so remember to keep them safe. The location has been marked on the scroll. Just tear the scroll and it will automatically activate. At 2 p.m. the guild asked Team 1 to check the situation outside. There would definitely be a lot of traces left from the battle, so it would be easy to find the location. Wante asked Sangwoo if there was anything else he wanted to ask. He just wanted to ask what he wanted to eat after I brought his sister back. Wante was surprised by this question. It showed confidence and affirmed Sangwoo's ability. Let's make some dishes ourselves. They prepared their swords and brought some potions. The clones started to depart. They entered the gate. Sangwoo also started to activate the fusion skill. Wante placed all his hopes on the young man in front of him this time. His fusion skill was executed quite well. They encountered a rather large snowstorm. Although his ability to withstand the cold was relatively good, he still could not escape this cold. After a while of struggling, everyone finally reached Odin Tower. But Sangwoo had a strange feeling. He could control number one's entire body. The fusion skill has now reached a new level. Sangwoo can not only share all senses with the clone but also have complete control over their bodies. It felt so real, as if he was actually moving. He would give orders about the locations the clones needed to go to. Okay, now let's go rescue Team 1. Looking at this solid ice wall, this was the reason why it was impossible for them to escape. It was completely blocked. How was this place created in the end? According to what was written on the paper, monsters would appear from the moment he entered the tower. As soon as he finished speaking, a monster did indeed appear. It was the ice bat. A clone quickly dealt with it. E-rank monsters will attack from the moment you enter, and they always attack in packs. So you have to pay attention to all 4 directions, and one of their characteristics is that there is always a leader in a pack of ice bats. It's the Ice Bat Lord, a D-rank monster. It bared its sharp teeth and wanted to eat Sangwoo. I'll deal with you directly. Just 1 slash, no second slash. I don't think it's that simple. Let's keep going. It's so cute, but it's not fun to fight. All the monsters don't have a good ending, even though they're all nothing. They have also gone 13 kilometers, so they're a quarter of the way there. As predicted, new monsters will also appear soon. Speaking of which, a giant monster came out of the cave with the voice of a demon. He raised his huge hammer and tried to beat Sangwoo to a pulp. He also quickly used his magic bullet skill. Number 3 will support from behind and number 2 from the front. The 2 sides began to fight, each with a child, neither side fighting for the others. The monsters were getting beaten up continuously. Everything seemed to be going well. If this continued, it would be easy to wipe them out. Suddenly the ground shook, and cracks appeared under everyone's feet, and everyone was in danger. Outside the camp, Wante is very worried about Sangwoo. Team 1 is the most elite attack team in the guild, and yet they still have trouble getting through there. Wante also set up a campaign to secretly infiltrate that place while avoiding fighting monsters as much as possible and rescue the team. The lowest rank requirement in that campaign was C rank. However, Hunter Sangwoo's growth rate exceeded his expectations. He thought Sangwoo had increased almost 20 points in most stats in just 6 months. His current stats had already reached the level of an B rank hunter. More importantly, Sangwoo's clones were also growing stronger. Their stats were lower than their masters, but their movements were superb. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they also possessed the abilities of an B rank hunter. The average rank of Team 1 was B rank. Wante believed that he alone was equal to the entire Team 1. If the Yolo Guild's warehouse wasn't raided, Sangwoo could have grown even more with the gems the guild had prepared. In this case, other than the ice golem mentioned in the report, there was no other monster that could stop him on the first floor. Wante also warned Sangwoo about the ice golem, so he'll avoid them and move along just fine. Though it's hard to get through without running into that damn monster. This one-eyed monster was the ice golem. Sangwoo tried to slash at it, but it had no effect at all. Oh no, the game was broken. Luckily he managed to escape before it could eat him, but the situation was pretty dire now. There was no way to deal damage to that monster if he couldn't slash it with this sword. The other small monsters were about to take the opportunity to charge forward, but the ice golem lifted them up with one hand and put them in its mouth, literally eating them. The Sangwoos who witnessed this event couldn't believe their eyes, then it continued to show its dirty hand towards them. Luckily, he ordered everyone to dodge immediately. They needed to quickly find the magic cores of these monsters. Where is its magic core after all? Even though I have seen it, the important problem is how to destroy it. His magic gun didn't even leave a scratch on it. Now that there was only one way left, Sangwoo ordered the clones to quickly get out of the attack range of that damn monster. However, number 5 was still blown away by it. The monster that defeated number 5 was the one holding the scroll that could teleport. Speaking of teleportation, Sangwoo suddenly thought of something. He ran towards it. The monster was preparing to put number 5 in its stomach. But this opportunity he also quickly teleported to get the scroll. The moment it clenched its teeth, the clones below all held their breath. Sangwoo successfully escaped death's door. What he just swallowed was not only number 5 but also the thing that would take his life. The monster exploded the moment it realized what was happening. This is the teleportation scroll of number 5. If he can't destroy its core, then he can only throw it somewhere else. Its core has been moved back to the barracks. Everyone there must be panicking. They don't know what this core is. So the golem was completely destroyed. His strength, health, defense, and mana stats all increased. Sangwoo's clone skill has been enhanced with clone, using energy to summon a clone that looks exactly like you. The number of clones you can summon increases depending on your level. The maximum number of clones you can summon is currently 7, with a cooldown available now. Seeing the notice board, Sangwoo was moved to tears, unlike the other skills. He couldn't find a way to increase the clone skill, but he wouldn't summon another clone at this time. Okay, let's continue on our way. Over here, a handsome hot boy with 6-pack abs is taking a shower. It's really hot to see. His subordinate sent him a list of people who had made appointments this month. He glanced through and noticed that none of them were in a guild in Korea. He felt so empty, something had changed. He asked his subordinates to reject everything and continue to hold the academy opening ceremony. On this side, the uncle at the hunting ground was helped by Sangwoo to escape and had the chance to enjoy this bowl of noodles. Senior Ji Gyunsok also understood, blaming him for not being able to contact Gapsu. The underling was captured by the Silvermoon gang, or rather, Haisheng handed him over to them. Ji Gyunsok thought his underling was lucky that he was able to escape from those bastards. He just said that he was helped. Gyunsok seemed to understand something. He didn't ask further. Anyway, it's okay. Chanwoo is quite busy. Please give him a hand. Suddenly there was a noise outside. Gyunsok opened the door, just opened it a little bit and got punched in the face. This uninvited guest is Chunsung, Park Gapsu, found him. So without further ado, who attacked my guild members at the hunting grounds? Answer carefully. This is the third person I've asked this question.